Well, thank you all so much for being here. I am so excited to announce that we are starting this meeting, the Osteoarthritis Patient-Focused Drug Development Meeting. The Arthritis Foundation is so pleased to have all of you here. My name is Suzanne Schrant. I'm the Director of Patient Engagement for the Arthritis Foundation, and I've actually been involved in patient advocacy for people with arthritis for a long time, since my rheumatologic diagnosis in 1990. And so I'm really honored to be here with all of these motivated and dedicated patients and caregivers who are willing to share your stories with us. I want to take a moment to recognize Amanda Niskar. She is the National Scientific Director for the Arthritis Foundation, who will be facilitating our meeting today. I would also like to thank our social media specialist, Rebecca Hunt, and we will be having live tweets happening during the day, so if you are a tweeterer person, that's how you do that. Don't forget to use our hashtag. I'd also like to thank our meeting managers, Becky Bosworth and Terry Early, who made sure we were all here and had this great space, and also our dedicated on-site and virtual AV team. So thank you to everyone. And again, most importantly, I want to thank our in-person participants and our virtual participants for joining us. I do want to encourage those of you in the room to feel comfortable getting up. I know we need to move around to keep our joints limber, so if you need to stretch, if you need to get a beverage in the back of the room, if you need restrooms, those are right out the door and you have a choice to go to your left or to your right. You'll find a restroom in either direction. The event is being recorded, and it will be posted on our website after the conclusion of the event. And so along those lines, this is live, and it's also live with a virtual component. And so you're going to see a lot of activity. We'll be connecting with our virtual audience in addition to connecting with those of you in the room. So that'll be a nice sort of dynamic way to have this conversation. I do want to say we've got mics in the room. You can see the mic stands, but we will also have runners with mics, and when we get into our discussion portion of the day, if it feels more comfortable to sit, please just raise your hand and we will bring a mic to you. If you need an opportunity to stretch your legs, then you've got mic stands, so we can accommodate you in both ways. When you do speak, just a reminder to speak right into the microphone, and please announce who you are so that the folks on the virtual meeting as well as the people in the room can know who you are. Next, I have the privilege of introducing Ann Palmer, the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Arthritis Foundation. Ann has spent more than 30 years with the voluntary health space, and she has truly revolutionized the organization's approach and structure and focus to deliver the greatest impact in the lives of those with arthritis. So I welcome Ann Palmer.
Well, it's my privilege, really, to be here with you all and to welcome you on behalf of myself and the senior team and Bing Chang, our National Board Chair, who will be with us today, because we have been anticipating this event and really consider it a landmark event for the Foundation, and are so proud and excited to collaborate with the FDA and to be able to have this event where we're bringing together industry leaders, academic leaders, and of course, the most important people in the room, and with us electronically, those who are going to give us more insights about what it's like to live with osteoarthritis. You know, the Arthritis Foundation is proud of our leadership, and we've had an exciting week. I hope that most of you know that our advocates played a really important role in the passage of the 21st Cure Act. We really believe in many of the principles associated with that, probably most importantly, the part about bringing patients into the process early on. We also just finished our summit where we had over 400 volunteers that went up on the Hill, really on the day of the official beginning of ACA reform, and they're very exciting for us. You may not know that we also had a group of our national board members on the Hill the day before talking about PDUFA legislation and really lobbying for its early passage, and again, talking about the importance of patients' voice in that process. The patient voice piece is exciting and important to the Arthritis Foundation. That's what we think we bring to this discussion. And that's why today is so exciting to us, really for two reasons. We really believe that we started an important collaboration with the FDA about a year ago with a shared vision of bringing patient-reported outcomes to the discussion to the forefront in changing the way we approach our work in clinical trials with osteoarthritis. And for me, we've been talking about it for a year, and today's the day that we're officially going to start this journey and hopefully really begin to change the outcome for people with osteoarthritis. And very exciting. We also believe that this is a day where we're going to begin to change how these kinds of meetings are run. As you know, and Susan's talked about, we've done a lot of work in preparation for these meetings. We have virtual folks with us on the line, and we hope that this is a new way of expanding and enhancing the participation of people, patients in the PFDD process. So again, the Arthritis Foundation is very excited to have you here and to be a part of leading this. It's my privilege to acknowledge members of the committee. Gail Lester, well known to many of us and to the Arthritis Foundation. She's with the NIH and NIAMS and has been a great part of this program. Virginia Krause. Virginia is at Duke and a great leader in the osteoarthritis field, and we appreciate all that you've done for us, Virginia. Rocky Twan, who's here from University of Pittsburgh. Again, a great leader. Sarah Yim, who has been right along with our side every step of the way. And of course, our patient advisors on the committee, Kay Harvey and David Shuey. So let's give them a round of applause, if you would stand. And I see Bing, I didn't see you earlier, so Bing, if you'd raise your hand. Bing is our national board chair, comes from Chicago. So in a moment, I have the privilege of introducing Janet Woodcock, at least virtually. And all of you know Janet as a leader at the FDA. And before I do that, though, I want to pause and again say a special thank you to Janet. She has been a tremendous advocate, supporter, partner with the Arthritis Foundation, a leader in raising the awareness about the growing concerns around osteoarthritis as a disease and the need for it to be addressed. And so we want to thank Janet for that leadership, and we also want to thank the many partners at the FDA who have worked with us to bring this forward, and we really appreciate that partnership with the FDA. So with that, I think we're going to now have Janet give her welcome, and I look forward to being with you the rest of the day. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all the participants, the planning committee, and the Arthritis Foundation for putting on this important meeting. Osteoarthritis is a really widespread disease in the United States and around the world, and it's a leading cause of disability. But despite that, we really don't have treatments that can arrest the disease. We have drug therapies for pain and to decrease inflammation, and there's surgical interventions that help for a while, but often osteoarthritis will continue to progress, and we do not have disease-modifying therapies. So we're very interested in new trials and new ways to evaluate interventions for osteoarthritis. And this meeting today is a direct outgrowth of an ongoing conversation with the Arthritis Foundation and the FDA over ways to move forward in this disease. Most recently, in February of 2016, the Arthritis Foundation and FDA had a co-sponsored workshop on accelerating osteoarthritis clinical trials. And this was very important in discussing new trial designs and ways to attract pharmaceutical investment into this space. In doing trials of a symptomatic disease like osteoarthritis, it's really important to focus on the patient's experience. How is the patient functioning? How is the therapy impacting them? How is the disease impacting them? And to understand the main symptoms of the disease and to have really good instruments to capture those symptoms and make sure we are responding in the treatment to the main things that bother the patient and limit the patient's lives. So a real objective of that workshop was to figure out how in clinical trials you could measure these things. This Arthritis Foundation patient-focused drug development meeting will really give all the parties a chance to hear directly from the patients about their experiences with osteoarthritis. We're really interested in understanding the burden of the disease on patients. And equally, we're interested in understanding the burden of current treatments and how well they're doing in alleviating the symptoms. We'd like to know what symptoms or problems are most important for patients to have ameliorated and what they would expect out of a new therapy and how they would think that should be measured. So understanding the daily lives of patients, their experiences, how the burden of disease affects them in various ways will really help us develop patient-reported outcomes so that we can get a very clear picture in trials of any impact that a new therapy is having, both for good and possibly also the downsides of the therapy, which is also very important to understand. What we've been doing with these patient-focused drug development meetings is getting a report called The Voice of the Patient. And in this case, the voice of the patient would come from the Arthritis Foundation, which is sponsoring the meeting. And that Voice of the Patient report is then taken by the FDA and put into our considerations of how trials would be structured, what the endpoints might be, and how better patient reported outcome measures could be developed that would have a more authentic capture of the impact of disease on patients and potentially the benefits of therapy. And all of this would then be incorporated in our benefit risk framework that we use in determining whether or not a new therapy should be approved for a disease. Because after all, it's the benefits to the patients and the potential harms to the patients that have to be weighed in considering whether the benefits outweigh the risks and a new treatment should be approved. So I really appreciate the effort the Arthritis Foundation is taking, putting on this meeting, and all the patients who are willing to come and share their experiences. These meetings have proven often to be very, very impactful, both for the participants and for the FDA in our thinking about disease. And so you're pioneers in a way, helping to move this new field of patient engagement in drug development forward. And I, again, thank the Arthritis Foundation, the Planning Committee, and particularly the participants for making this happen.
Video feed is just a little bit slower than our feed, so we needed to wait until they saw the end of the video, so thanks for your patience. It was a cliffhanger to just keep you on your toes. I want to say thank you so much to Anne for your inspiring words, and another thank you to Janet Woodcock for that really helpful video message that I think helps to underscore why we're here today. If we can sort of provide a window into the daily lives of people with osteoarthritis and what that burden is like and what they experience, that is the data that we can give to the FDA so that we have patient-reported outcomes that really matter in clinical trials, and we can truly evaluate the real impact of a new therapy. So very helpful to set our stage for today. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce Suzette Pang. Suzette is a board-certified internist and rheumatologist. She was a staff rheumatologist at Walter Reed and then at Fort Belvoir Community Hospital, and she still sees patients with a variety of rheumatologic conditions. She joined the FDA in 2012 as a clinical reviewer in the Office of New Drugs, the Division of Pulmonary, Allergy, and Rheumatology Products. So help me welcome Suzette.
Good afternoon. As Sue said, my name is Suzette Peng. I'm a commander in the U.S. Public Health Service, but was formerly in the U.S. Army, where I received all my medical training. And I currently practice adult rheumatology and am a clinical reviewer at the FDA. And in that role, I review drugs for rheumatologic diseases, and with my clinical experience, help determine whether they are safe and effective for public use. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak this afternoon. We at the FDA value these meetings where we can interact with the community and with patients directly. So this is my disclaimer, and I have no disclosures. At the FDA, we want to partner with patients with the goal of treating diseases while limiting side effects. People living with disease have a direct stake in the outcome of drug development. They also have the unique ability to contribute input that can inform drug development and evaluation. In the past, the FDA's mechanism to directly obtain patient input have often been limited to discussions related to specific drug applications under the FDA's review. However, there is great value in opening a broader dialogue with patients and their caregivers outside the context of any specific drug. And so the FDA recognized a need for a more systematic way of gathering patient perspectives on their conditions and treatment options. And the reason is that patient input helps inform a broader understanding of the therapeutic context of drug development. And what I mean by therapeutic context is essentially all the factors that come into play when considering the therapeutic benefit of any drug. And it's this understanding of the therapeutic context that is important to our role as regulators, to the role of drug makers, and everyone involved in the drug development process. So the FDA's Patient-Focused Drug Development Initiative, or PFDD, is part of the FDA commitments under the 5th authorization of the Prescription Drug User Fee Act, or PDUFA. And PDUFA is the law passed by Congress which requires the FDA to meet certain performance benchmarks as part of the drug review and approval process. And the goal of these PFDD meetings is to incorporate the patient voice to decision making. As part of the FDA's commitments, the Center for Drugs, where I work, and the Center for Biologics are in the process of convening 24 disease-specific meetings in a 5-year period from 2013 to this year, 2017. And this will allow the FDA to systematically obtain a better understanding of patient perspectives on the severity of a disease and the available therapies for these conditions. The FDA nominated candidate diseases and sought public input to determine the PFDD meetings that would be led by the FDA, and you can see these on the table here. Ultimately, the FDA wants to hear your voice to allow us to make the most informed decisions. And on this slide are examples of the types of questions that are asked at FDA-led PFDD meetings. And as you can see, the PFDD meetings focus on 2 main points. 1, symptoms and daily impacts that matter most to patients. And 2, patient perspectives on current approaches to therapy. Additionally, topics such as clinical trial considerations, clinically meaningful benefit, in other words, benefits of treatment that mean the most to patients, have also been explored. And on occasion, scientific workshops have also been held in conjunction to PFDD meetings. As Dr. Woodcock had mentioned, each FDA-led meeting results in a report called The Voice of the Patient, and it captures patient input from the meeting in the participants' own words. This input, by providing important patient context, can support FDA staff as they weigh the risks and benefits for products under review, advise drug makers, who we also refer to as drug sponsors or drug developers, on their development programs, or identify opportunities for further discussion. We also believe these meetings can have value to drug development more broadly. For example, by helping to identify areas of unmet need, such as aspects of patients' conditions that are not currently being addressed by therapies. This may also help drug developers as they identify or create tools used to measure the benefit of potential therapies. And we also have seen how these meetings have helped raise awareness within the patient community themselves. So the FDA recognizes that 24 FDA-led PFDD meetings by no means covers the breadth of diseases that would benefit from patient input, and there have been growing external interest in expanding efforts to gather patient input in support of drug development and evaluation. And to help expand the benefits of the FDA's PFDD initiative, we welcome patient organizations to identify and organize patient-focused collaborations to generate public input on other disease areas. And this is exactly what the Arthritis Foundation has done today with this meeting in gathering patients with osteoarthritis so that we can obtain your input. And since this is your meeting, the meeting and any resulting products, such as reports or surveys, are not considered FDA-sponsored or endorsed, but although they're not FDA-sponsored, they can be equally as informative and valuable. So moving on to osteoarthritis in this afternoon's meeting, osteoarthritis is the most common form of arthritis. As many of you know, it affects over 30 million U.S. adults. And specifically, symptomatic knee OA affects adults over the age of 60, 10% of men and 13% of women. And the number is expected to increase with the aging population and the obesity epidemic. And along with aging and obesity, there are other risk factors to development of osteoarthritis. Gender plays a role, occupation, history of trauma, and muscle weakness. And osteoarthritis is having an increasing impact on health systems in the U.S. and worldwide, with patients living with increasing disability and thus increasing the economic burden on the patients themselves and society as a whole. Currently, drugs approved for osteoarthritis are approved based on improvements of signs and symptoms. So in clinical trials, the drugs improve patient-reported outcomes such as pain and function. There are risks and limitations to the medications that are available. And importantly, as Dr. Woodcock mentioned, there are no drugs that can prevent or even slow down progression of osteoarthritis. So therefore, we at the FDA fully support the Arthritis Foundation and agree that a PFDD and osteoarthritis may be very valuable. With the limited types of therapy currently available, patients with osteoarthritis will be able to offer quite a bit of help in the development of drugs for this disease. Patients with OA can clarify what are meaningful benefits, both in the short term and the long term. Patients may better define what types of tools and questions would best measure the benefits of potential therapies. And as mentioned, current treatment for OA targets pain and function, but there may be other targets that would be more clinically meaningful to patients, and we want to hear those. So in conclusion, with the array of potential support to drug development, we are eager to hear from you, patients living with osteoarthritis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suzette, for that really helpful overview. And I don't know about all of you, but seeing that presentation just reminded me of how truly busy the FDA is, and so it makes me all the more grateful for your time here today. I would like to now introduce Amanda Niskar, the National Scientific Director of the Arthritis Foundation. Amanda represents the Arthritis Foundation on the Clinical Trials Transformation Initiative that some of you may know as CITI. Amanda is also distinguished faculty for the 2017 Osteoarthritis Research Society International, it's a mouthful, also known as ORSI, the World Congress inaugural course on osteoarthritis clinical trials. So I'll turn it over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Suze, for the introduction, and thank you to all of you for coming today in person and virtually. I'm going to cover a few things you may have already heard, but I'm going to start to transition us into more specifics about the work we're going to do here today. First of all, historically, a year ago, we came together with scientists from around the world to talk about how to accelerate clinical trials for osteoarthritis. One of the main recommendations that came out of this for the Arthritis Foundation was that we should get involved in the patient-focused drug development initiative. And the first thing, as you've heard about, is that would include a voice of the patient report for osteoarthritis. And we would figure out the benefits of treatments that are most important to people with arthritis. And we would figure out which reported outcomes for patients are clinically meaningful, and that these benefits the treatments would achieve would be the endpoints for clinical trials. So once we did that, we had to write a letter of intent, and we met Meghana and Pujita, who have been wonderful advisors for us from the FDA, and helped us understand the letter of intent submission process. And so we did that, and it took a few months to find out we were approved. And then when we were approved, we put together our planning committee. And we've already recognized our planning committee, but just to point out that they're a combination of clinicians and scientists and patients, and they were thinking about all the different important things you might need to think about when designing a clinical trial to help work on all the pre-activities that were required to get ready for today's event. In the very end of the osteoarthritis patient report that we'll be producing from today's meeting, we'll have this summary table that will look at the benefit and risk topics that we're discussing today. The planning committee kept this table in mind as we developed the poll that most of the patients have already taken, as well as the focus group discussion questions and all of the different discussion points and poll questions we'll have today. Everything is systematically designed and very thoughtful to make sure we're collecting all the information we need for a comprehensive, detailed report, and to make sure we can populate this summary table as well as all the information that will lead up to it. This information, as Dr. Woodcock said in her video, will be used to inform regulatory decision-making about getting new osteoarthritis treatments to market. So some pre-activities that many of you did participate in. We had an online poll in January with 307 responses from 45 states. 295 of those responders selected yes. The other folks that did not select yes, they have OA, are likely caregivers or folks that are at risk of getting OA, and they were interested in helping out. So we appreciate those people for their interest. We also had 5 focus groups, and you can see the cities listed here. They're across the country, and we tried to represent rural and urban areas as well as different geographic areas. And we looked at various insights that did lead to our polling questions we're going to see today. Now, this data is listed as preliminary because we were still continuing to collect data through February and March. This is the data we had as of January. So the first thing I'd like to show you, if you look at the pie chart for gender, we only had 10% males. Now, although, as you've heard today, osteoarthritis is diagnosed more commonly in women, there are usually more men with osteoarthritis, usually more 30 to 40%. You can see that on our panel today. We've got 10 panelists, and 30% are men. For age, you can see here a nice bell curve for our polling. And I'd just like to point out, you've seen some statistics today from Suzette about older population with osteoarthritis, but recent statistics came out in December that showed just for knee osteoarthritis alone, 14 million Americans have been diagnosed with knee osteoarthritis currently. 2 million of those are under 45 years of age. So this does affect the young people, even though our poll may not represent that as much. Do you have a family history of osteoarthritis? This is pretty representative of the literature right now, showing 65% of our people said, yes, other people in my family have osteoarthritis. And post-traumatic osteoarthritis, 24% of our poll respondents said yes, they'd been told their OA is related to trauma or injury. That's also pretty consistent with the literature. Now I'm going to transition us to our interactive component of this meeting, and again, appreciate your patience as we go back and forth between on-site and virtual. This first polling question, we're going to have 4 of these today, as well as discussion questions, is going to work in this way. I'm going to go back to sitting over there on the computer so that I can read the chat comments that are going to be provided by the virtual attendees. And Sue is on her way up back onto the stage. She's going to be asking you to raise your hands for each of these options, and she's going to count your hands. And that way we'll be able to aggregate the data to include in the report for each of our polling questions. Then we're going to ask Caroline, and our virtual AV person, to help us push out the results. So after we count your hands, we're going to actually see a bar graph to see what the virtual people voted for the poll. And then we'll take some discussion. Suze will call on people here for comments, and then she'll alternate back and forth with me so that I can read comments from the virtual attendees, because we really want to engage and interact with the virtual patients as well as those in the room, and caregivers and other representatives of patients. So now that you know what to expect, I'm going to just read this first poll question, and so you can think about what your answer may be. How many years did you have pain in your joints before receiving the diagnosis of osteoarthritis?
All right, so I hope everyone understood the rules. We'll sort of walk through it as we do it. So I'll read the question again. How many years did you have pain in your joints before receiving the diagnosis of OA? And so we're going to do this by a show of hands. We're going to exhibit my mathematical skills in live time. Okay, so raise your hand if it's less than 1 year. 1, 2, 3. So that's 3. 1 to 5 years. 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that a hand or no? Okay, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. 6 to 10 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow. More than 10 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right. Did you get that, Amanda? Okay.
Thank you, Sue. Caroline, can you please push the results for the virtual attendee poll? Thank you. Very interesting. So 30% went 6 to 10 years with pain before their diagnosis, and 10% more than 10 years. We asked this question because it came up in the focus group that people were not necessarily diagnosed at the time their pain started. Maybe they didn't talk to their physician. Maybe they talked to their physician, but their physician needed more education about the disease. So, Sue, would you like to engage in some conversation about that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think this is pretty remarkable to see how long of a delay many of you went through. So for those of you who had a substantial delay in diagnosis, What do you think were the circumstances that led to that? What do you think caused that? And if we have, who are our microphone runners? Do we have folks who can run? Okay, great. So we have a comment right in the front over here. And please remember to say your name before you give your comment. Right in the front here.
Hi, my name is Jill Beavers Kirby, and I'm from Columbus, Ohio. And I had pain for several years and was not diagnosed, in my opinion, for two reasons. One, because I'm female, and I felt I got the opinion of, oh, I'm just being whiny, or you're overweight, and so I don't think my complaints were taken seriously. And two, at the time when I really started having these complaints, I was 40.
So it seemed like you were too young to have something like this. Okay. Amanda, do we have any virtual audience comments on this question?
Thanks, Sue. We do not have any comments on this question at this time. For those of you virtually, if you would like to submit comments, you may do so throughout the event, and I'll be monitoring those to share them with the group.
Any other comments in the room? There were so many hands with a delayed diagnosis. Kathy?
I believe mine was delayed for so long because it's been fogged in with the rheumatoid arthritis. There's so much focus on that I think it got overlooked for osteoarthritis as well.
Okay. Okay, great. So some confusion about what the source of the issue was. That's really
Correct.
helpful. And Bill? Okay. Oh. There's actually a microphone right back there if you want to. Sorry.
My name is Bill Goulet. I'm from Erlanger, Kentucky, originally from New England. And I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but, you know, I come from a family where it was just generally accepted. It's like, don't complain about it. We all have, I won't use my last name, but we all have bad knees. And this is just the way it is, and it wasn't like there was a lot that could be done about it. And it wasn't until I got close to having all my replacements that it was, once it was diagnosed, and I actively pursued how to work on it. But it was just, that's the way life is, and that's it.
Thank you for that, Bill. We've heard that from so many patients that you're just encouraged to push through, and this is the way life is. So thanks for sharing that point. And Amy, this will be our last comment. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Barron, and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I agree with the other lady over here that I have RA, and I think my osteoarthritis was misdiagnosed. Not misdiagnosed, but no one ever commented about it because of my rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay, so even if it was a significant issue, it was not being addressed. So
correct. It is like, oh, well, that's OA.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Amy.
Suze, I'd like to add one.
Oh, great.
Virtual. A couple of people said something along the lines of, I complained to my doctor heard me, but it wasn't that bad yet, so they said complain again if it gets more severe.
Wow. I'm seeing a lot of nods. Yep. Okay, with that, why don't we go to our second poll question? Do I need to advance?
Okay, thank you. Our second poll question, with your current treatment and/or therapy, how often does osteoarthritis limit your daily activities?
Okay, so we'll do another show of hands here. So if your activity is limited every day by your OA, raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Wow. Okay. If it's limited some days each week, 1, 2. Okay. If it's limited some days each month, okay, 1. Okay. How about some days each year? Wow. and then never. And I think never. Oh, wow, I didn't. That's great. Okay. All right. So did you get those numbers?
Thank you, Sue. For some days each month, it was kind of quiet. Was that the one where there was one person?
There was 1 for some days each month and 0 for some days each year.
Okay. Good. Thank you. So it seems consistent with the room that the majority of people with OA on the web also said every day it affects their daily activities. So folks on the web, please go ahead and put your comments into the chat, and after we talk to some people in the room, we'll read some of your comments. Thanks.
So seeing these results and seeing how many people are affected so frequently, what would you say are those things? What are those activities that are limited? Can anyone share some of those examples? Jennifer? Oh, we need a mic runner over here. Front row.
Hello, I'm Jennifer from Middleburg, Florida. Excuse my voice. Limiting, really, the osteoarthritis is just in my left knee. It keeps me from walking and has done further damage along with the other arthritis.
Okay. Great. Thank you for sharing that. What other activities? Linda? Second row.
Linda Walls, Oakland, California. First one is the fact that I don't walk like I used to be. So walking, standing, bending, any of those things are impacted by it. And I would go so far as to say it's not every day. Mine has gotten to the point that it's almost every minute that something that I would normally do is impacted by it, the disease.
Thank you for that. That's a powerful way to capture it. Cindy, did you have a?
I'm sorry, Cindy from Chicago. I just wanted to say stairs. My doctor told me avoid stairs. Really? You know, how do you avoid stairs? Stairs are everywhere.
Sure.
Thank you.
I want to check on the virtual audience and see if we've got anything there.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We've got a few ideas suggested here. One is I can't even run or jog. I can't toss a Frisbee with my son.
Okay. All right. Any other comments in the room? I think everyone is nodding and agreeing with what's been said.
I've got another example here.
Great.
People are writing about not being able to go to the grocery store, and just in general, when you do an activity, it spends your energy. You don't have energy to do regular things like go to work or cook dinner, no social life.
That energy trade-off.
I'm Angie Irvin from Mississippi. I had trauma-induced spinal osteoarthritis. I do not have it in my knees, but I've also had lumbar disc surgery. So basically every day I don't do any housework, mopping, sweeping, vacuuming, any of that, picking up. I'm careful about picking up anything that's heavier than 5 pounds. It impacts my entire spine up to my head, can give me headaches. Reading the computer too long, anything like that. So I have a wonderful husband who is a great caretaker for me.
Thank you for sharing that. So really a whole body impact. And then
my name is Sarah. I'm from Southern Utah, and mine is C-spine related. And there are days that by the end of the workday, I have spent everything I could. So when I get home, I can't turn my head. I can't lift my arms above my head. I can barely move my elbows. I can't pick up coffee cups. So it's very limiting to get through the day at work so that when you come home, you don't do anything else.
Right. All right, thank you. Okay, last comment here.
Okay, sorry. I'm Jennifer Walker from Texas. I have it in my hips and my knees and my spine actually as a result of my autoimmune diseases. So mine affects me whether or not I can sit up in bed in the morning. I didn't think I was going to be able to get my socks on this morning. Getting in and out of cars is really hard, and how long I can sit or stand at a time. So I'm constantly moving and shifting and standing and sitting and adjusting. So.
Okay. Thank you all so much. I know it's asking a lot to share such personal information, but it really helps, paint a picture for how this disease works. So thanks for jumping into that conversation. We are going to be interactive for much of the day. And in that spirit of hearing directly from patients and caregivers, I actually want to invite our first panel up. So this is Kathy, Ed, Donna, Bruce, and Kay. And while they're coming up and getting situated, I'll just say that we're so lucky to have these 5 wonderful folks literally here from all over the country, from west to east and in the middle. So we've got a great sort of diversity of experiences from these folks. If we can, we're going to try to hold our applause until everyone is finished on the panel, but we truly do appreciate all of you being here. And so with that, I'm going to kind of hop over here to the corner, and we're going to start with Kathy.
Thank you, Suze. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathy Geller, and I reside in Watchung, New Jersey. I am currently retired after having spent over 25 years in the health and fitness field. I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis about 20 years ago. The diagnosis was considered early onset, as I was in my 40s. To look at me, you would never know that I've endured over 10 surgeries since my diagnosis. The thought I want to share with you today is what life is like when you live with a chronic disease for which there is no cure or even a way to slow down the destruction. And I just wanted to comment about my slide that is up there. The one with my arms raised was a Joints in Motion half marathon that I did in 2007 in Walt Disney World. And the one on the other side is from May of 2016. And you can see I'm in a wheelchair. I was being honored as the adult honoree at our Walk to Cure Arthritis, and I was unable to walk. My life with osteoarthritis is all about starts and stops. It is a constant challenge to adjust to the new normal after every surgery. I live every day worrying about which joint will be affected next. My life is also full of losses. I was unable to hold my first grandchild as my hands were in casts after joint replacement. I had to give up my profession as a personal trainer and exercise instructor, which was my passion, because I could no longer assist clients or lift the equipment that was necessary to train them. I couldn't stay in the family home my husband and I built because it was simply too difficult for me to navigate and recuperate after each osteoarthritis-related surgery, the most recent being my 3rd spinal surgery in 6 years to fuse 2/3 of my lower back. I have exercised my entire adult life. My weight is the same as the day I got married 47 years ago. I have used medication, physical therapy, occupational therapy, hot and cold packs, acupuncture, massage, injections of all kinds, and surgery. I faithfully use all the self-management techniques the Arthritis Foundation recommends. I regularly see my rheumatologist and my orthopedist. I volunteer for the Arthritis Foundation, which provides a welcome distraction from the pain, stiffness, and fatigue that I experience every day. Osteoarthritis is not an acute, life-threatening disease, but it is insidious. It slowly chips away at your cartilage and your spirit. I mourn the loss of things I love and worry about what the future will bring. It took me considerable time, but I have finally given in to OA. This should not be confused with giving up. I have finally accepted that I am living with a chronic, progressive degenerative disease for which there is no cure and not even a way to halt its progression. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And now we're going to hear from Ed McGrath.
Hi, I'm Ed McGrath, 69 years old and retired to Florida. In retrospect, I believe osteoarthritis was manifested first when I was about 30. There's a distortion in my right knuckle and in my index finger. Over the years, I've asked physicians about the disfigurations, but didn't get any meaningful, accurate response. Certainly, no one said you should be checked out for arthritis. Since my mother's hands looked about the same as these, I figured it was sort of normal. It was in my 60s when osteoarthritis was first diagnosed. It showed up in an MRI taken to explore treatments for knee pain. Went to a rheumatologist, it was no RH factor, so it was osteoarthritis. Where is it located? Various CAT scans, X-rays, MRIs have identified osteoarthritis in my fingers, hands, shoulders, neck, lower bottom of the spine. Since I have joint pain in my hip, I'm told that's probably also osteoarthritis. In many ways, osteoarthritis is invisible. Since I seem to look like a normal, though obese American, people expect me to keep living the way I used to. I can't. It's not a matter of strength. I work out with a personal trainer. Mostly it's about my grip. Since I cannot firmly grasp things like I used to, I'm afraid of dropping things. Even hammering a nail requires that you have a good grip on a hammer. Even my spouse and children seem not to be sensitive to the changes osteoarthritis causes. A common refrain is, that's something you like to do. Of course it is something I used to like to do and would still like to do whatever that is. But perhaps it's not all that wise. There are also social issues. After sitting for an hour or so, I sometimes feel the need to stand up. And if I do, I frequently stagger and need to have scoped out in advance what I can lean on. If I stand up during a conversation or a meeting while others are seated, people think I want to leave, even if I explain that some people with osteoarthritis are uncomfortable sitting for very long. These reactions are especially noticeable after my knee operation when I stopped using a cane. I think the cane was a signal that I had a problem. Again, even if I explain OA, it doesn't seem to register as a medical condition. It seems to be invisible. Osteoarthritis impacts my life in numerous ways outside the home and social interactions. For example, hobbies and recreational activities have been curtailed. I enjoy camping and hiking. Now, though, the thought of kneeling on the ground and setting up a tent in the Everglades is just simply not manageable. It would be hard for me to say that I've given up on boating because of osteoarthritis. However, I'm probably kidding myself. In fact, I haven't done very much of it recently. But boating requires gripping lines, tying knots, and holding a tiller for long periods. Increasingly, these are difficult tasks. Vegetable gardening used to be a special pleasure. I stopped having one about 6 years ago. I could no longer do the work myself. Kneeling is out of the question. Getting up from the ground is a challenge. Pruning, there's no way. I tried hiring help, but that wasn't a satisfying way to garden. It just wasn't the same. It was like running a small business that wasn't very profitable. In summary, 2 issues I would like you to consider. First, it's not the pain that I mind so much, but the lack of functionality, and that the only reasonable expectation is that it will get worse. Second, though I'm not a scientist, it seems to me that early detection may be a good first step at developing early intervention. It was close to 30 years between the development of nodes on my finger and I got a diagnosis. So with that, I've concluded. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ed. And next we're going to hear from Donna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Donna Dernier. I'm age 72 from the San Francisco Bay Area, Castro Valley. I'm retired from my job. I used to be a claims rep with the Social Security Administration, also in QA, so on. I want to tell you about a routine I followed for many years before I retired. I drove 25 miles to work in a car I loved. I had bought this on my own as a female standing in a car dealership. It was my car. It was a sporty little Nissan T-Top. Part of the drive went along the edge of San Francisco Bay where I could see the Golden Gate Bridge and sometimes the kite surfers. The car was my baby. I tell you about my little car because I realized that was the first big thing I gave up as my OA became more and more of an issue in my life. I had already stopped climbing more than one flight of stairs at a time, and my shoes were getting more and more sensible as I spent time on my feet. But I had written these off as getting older and carrying a few extra pounds. Those few extra pounds creep up as you get less and less active. So by giving up the car in favor of one with a higher seat, I began the saga of giving up and cutting down in an effort to cut down on the pain, which at this point was mainly in my hip. I took an early retirement and I joined two friends who walked 3 miles around a reservoir, which I thought would be very good. I soon found out I couldn't really keep up with them because they kept up quite a pace, and I needed to stop to rest while they didn't. These friends are my age. Ultimately, I had to find other people to hang out with during the day. I sought out a group of women in their 80s because with their assortment of canes and walkers, they moved at a pace that I could keep up with. I was 59. In the meantime, I tried a variety of things to alleviate the pain, acupuncture, massage, all the usual things. Nothing seemed to touch the pain. Finally, in a big move, I agreed to consider surgery, and my doctor ordered an x-ray. I did a total hip replacement. At that point, I'd been using a cane. I had a handicap parking sticker. I couldn't walk around a store without using a grocery cart to lean on. And I couldn't even go to the mall, where walking from one end of the mall to the other became impossible. You can see in my slide that I'm in a wheelchair because that's the only way I could do Disneyland with the family in the year before I had surgery. The hip surgery was a miracle. In 4 months, I felt like I had my world back. I was pain-free, back to most of my old activities. I figured I had this whole arthritis thing whipped. But of course, 5 years later, I had a second hip replacement, and the disease marches on. My current challenge is spinal stenosis as the neck vertebrae begin a slow deterioration. Currently, my husband has to back my car into the garage so that I never have to twist around enough to back the car down the driveway. When I reach the point where I have trouble glancing over my shoulder to change lanes, I guess I'll have to give up driving. I hope that's not for many years. I'm really hoping that before then there will be a drug or a procedure that could stop or slow down the process that the OA does. It's nice to stop the pain, although I never found a pill that really did that. And replacement surgery is amazing, although I always have to worry that I will live longer than my joints. And the vertebrae aren't at this point replaceable. But if the OA could have been stopped or slowed down when I had mild hip pain, That would have been wonderful and a true miracle.
Thank you so much, Donna. Next up, we have Bruce.
Good afternoon. I am Pastor Bruce Hanson, a pastor for the last 40 years who is retired, and I have been married for 49 years. As a part of that, I've moved around to different parishes in the Midwest and rural areas. My wife and I have encountered a lot of medical issues. My wife has had diabetes for all of our marriage, developed renal failure, stroke, breast cancer, kidney transplant, and now has osteoarthritis as well as me. She gave me the diabetes, but the arthritis I think I got on my own. I am the primary caregiver for my wife. That means I'm the one that has to get up and move her around because she's a total invalid. I have to lift her and turn her, place her in the wheelchair, as you see her there, right after her stroke. I have to get her out of the chair, take her to the bathroom, put her in a recliner or wherever we go. One of the things that's happened is, as she's developed osteoarthritis in the hips, is she can't move, so she has to endure the pain. The available drugs for her are either Tylenol or Roxanol, which is a form of, I can't think of what it is now, morphine. But it's only a limited dose, so most of the time she lays there in pain with the osteoarthritis. For me, because it's in my back, it's gotten to the point I can no longer lift her. I now had to incorporate the lifts in the house, so I have a track system in the bedroom and the bathroom and the living room, which of course the government and Medicare does not pay for. And even at that, I still have trouble taking care of her. The other morning I went to get her up at 5 to go to the bathroom, and I had to literally leave her in the bed and sit down because my back was so bad that I couldn't lift her and move her around. We fully acknowledge there are others who suffer more, but for us, it is a major issue. For my wife, it's a life-threatening issue, not only because she has it and endures the pain, but I have it and am unable to take care of her as I should. We are left with few choices. I can only take Tylenol. She can only have limited amounts of medication. So we endure. I've been asked to be here, and I'm honored to be here, but my appeal to the FDA is please help. We need more help that helps us with things like osteoarthritis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. And now we're going to hear from Kay Harvey.
Good afternoon. My name is Kay Harvey, and I'm from Columbia, South Carolina, where I'm currently stationed with my husband, who is on active duty at Fort Jackson. And thank the Arthritis Foundation for this opportunity. I'm very proud to be an advocate and for this opportunity to share with you firsthand my experience living with arthritis and the daily impact of this disease. Dr. Penn, thank you for your service. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and I'm now a part of the statistic of numerous veterans with doctor-diagnosed arthritis. As a soldier in the U.S. Army, we pride ourselves on physical fitness, technical and tactical proficiency, and an overall winning attitude. And winning attitude for the team and for the unit and the commands which we represent. Now, I emphasize the word now because during my time on active duty, I was not able to acknowledge my pain. I began to experience pain outside of the normal aches and pains that would usually go away with rest and Motrin, cold packs, warm packs, 24-hour quarters. It just wouldn't go away. My pain continued to persist, and it was causing me to retreat to my bed while my other soldiers were enjoying extracurricular activities, sightseeing, and just being normal young soldiers. My time alone was a blessing and a curse. I did have time to study and complete several promotion boards and reach rank faster than most of my counterparts and fellow soldiers. My goal was to become a sergeant major and to continue my time in the service, but that was cut short due to the pain. When Army units run, we sing or call cadence, and I love to sing. So cadence is a traditional call and response sort of work song that maintains rhythm within the ranks, and it helps you take the mind off of the obvious things, the slower runners, the fact that you miss home or loved ones, the 4 or 5 miles that are ahead of you, and the pain. It takes your mind off the pain. So singing kept my mind off of the pain, and it was almost euphoric in the days as I began to notice that something was really wrong with me and this pain was not normal. But that was the military culture. You suck it up and drive on. My pain became a source of shame as I tried to ignore it, but it wouldn't stop. I loved to run. I was the guidon bearer for my battalion, and my soldiers knew that if you wanted to pass the PT test, you run with Sergeant Manning. Arthritis is a silent enemy to those of us in the military. So I decided to end my time honorably, and I became a civilian. So over the past few years, as a civilian, a wife, and a mother, I've had an opportunity to acknowledge my pain and take steps toward getting the help that I need. As a result of my injuries and the impact on my joints, I miss extracurricular activities like welcoming my wonderful husband, Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Harvey, home from deployments. He understands that sometimes I just can't make it to the airport. And sometimes that very handsome chipmunk, my Chris Jr., I have to miss a lot of his basketball games. It inhibits mobility. It robs you of quality of life experiences and your overall well-being. I was, however, inspired by patients that I worked with in Syracuse, New York, and that's when I ended up getting a late diagnosis of arthritis. Each day is a challenge. Small tasks like getting in and out of my car, walking up and down stairs, getting dressed, and just trying to maintain an overall positive attitude. Those are challenges for me now. Even going to military balls and dancing with my husband, sometimes I can't do it. I try to save my good days for those moments that I wish would last forever, but I know I'll never have again. I'm reminded of one of my favorite passages of Scripture, which states, "For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in each of us." Romans 8:18 through the 23rd. That's my strength. I try to realize that there'll be better days ahead. And being a part of this panel has strengthened my resolve and enhanced my faith. In addition to my technical and practical and emancipating interest in the development of research to address this disease, I'm glad to be here to share with you how this has impacted my life. So I implore you to stand strong and continue to fight. And this is our cry, and this is what we need. We need you to understand our pain, our cadence, our song. Thank you.
Great. I'd actually like another round of applause just for our entire panel. That was so helpful. All right. So if you all would like, you can resume your seats in the audience. It'll be a little more comfortable there for you. And I just have to say, as our panelists are getting situated, it's almost hard to believe that all 5 of these people have the same disease when you hear how differently everyone is impacted, and yet they all share some commonalities. They share loss and frustration. They try to be hopeful, but that's hard to do in the absence of great treatments. So I just thank you again for being so candid and helping to really paint this picture for us. So we're going to sort of open the room up again for discussion now. We're going to have another polling question followed by some discussion questions. So Amanda, are you ready for the third polling question?
Yes, thank you. Our third question, do you feel your osteoarthritis is an invisible disease?
All right, you know the drill. So I'll give you a moment to think about this, and we actually just heard some remarks about the invisibility issue. So those of you who feel like it's always invisible, could you raise your hand? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Great. What about those who feel that it's sometimes invisible, but not all the time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And never invisible. Does anyone feel like it's visible? No? Okay, great. So Amanda, we had 17 always, 8 sometimes, and 0 never.
Caroline, can you please push out the poll results for the virtual attendees?
So we'll see what our virtual friends said.
Thanks. So 50% said always, and 11.1% said never, that it's very visible. So while we talk in the room, for those of you virtual, once again, please type in your comments. And even if I don't read your comments because we run out of time, please continue to write your comments because we will use all of those to write the Voice of the OA Patient Report. Everything is getting archived. So continue to write your comments. And right now, Suze, I'll pass it back to you to start the discussion.
Absolutely. So for those of you who said always or sometimes, which is everyone, so it sounds like this is a real problem, can anyone give us sort of an example or an illustration, sort of like what Ed shared about when he gets up from a table and people are confused about why he's leaving the conversation? Do others have examples of how it's invisible? Does anyone have an example of that? Or would you just like to explain? Oh, sure, go ahead. We've got a mic coming to you.
Hi, my name is Kristen. I'm from Dade City, Florida. I think for me, the biggest part of it being invisible is my age. I'm in my 30s, but it's completely from the top to the bottom of my back. And it really impedes the way I can walk or sit or stand, and people just kind of look at you funny, like, why do you keep shifting? Why are you sitting and standing? And you just kind of feel like you're kind of locked, like if you are in a meeting. Not this one, because it's more understanding, of course, but others, it's like you don't want to get up because then people look at you, especially, your age. And I know everyone has, their issues, but for me, it's the age.
That's a really important perspective, so thank you for bringing that up. Are there other thoughts on the invisibility?
So I had to ask for a standing desk at work so I can alternate sitting and standing. And I look younger than what I am, and my boss and my boss's boss know what's going on with me. So actually the VP of my department gave me his, which I thought was great. But then people start sort of circling around. And, oh, I wanted one of those, but I don't think I'll get one. And then they look at you like you're getting special treatment and almost like you're in special favor, when in reality that's not the case. And so even though some of the people know more of my health issues and stuff, they still say things like that, and they don't understand. I'd rather not have to have one. It's not a privilege. So, but that's part of the invisibility of it. So they just kind of look at you like you're getting something special when you just want something to be able to function.
Thank you for sharing that. And Kay, I mean, being in the I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. Being in the military, sort of the way you described, people look at you as a source of strength and people who are tough. So did you experience this invisibility issue? Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Absolutely, because I'm 38 years old, and I started having pain at 20. I joined the military at 17. So whenever I went to the doctor and told them that I was having pain, oh, it's just because you're in that unit that runs all the time. And even as a civilian, I've had a hard time transitioning to the civilian workforce because, and I call them haters, because they're like, well, why do you get an extra hour to walk from the, well, not an extra hour, but an extra 10 minutes to walk from the parking lot. I used to work at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and our parking lot was far away from the building. So I had to tell my pathologist, look, sometimes my foot wants to not cooperate. So it's going to take me about 10 minutes longer to get up the stairs to the building and up the stairs to the lab. And I ended up being marked late for work, and I just got tired of it. So it definitely impedes your professional development and your integration into other parts of society.
Thank you for sharing that. Virginia, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Virginia Krause from Duke University. I was really struck by the age comment. That was really struck home. Even on the other end of the spectrum, which is older people, oftentimes they're told that it's a normal part of aging. Therefore, even if it is visible, it doesn't really matter that much, which is another concept. It's another mechanism by which it looks invisible after all.
Right. That's so important. Donna?
I put sometimes because I feel like if I'm sitting or standing or even walking slowly, it's invisible. But when I move, if you watch me stand up from a chair or go downstairs or try and walk very fast, that's when it becomes visible.
That's an important distinction. You can almost sort of fake it the other times. You can't really see it. Yeah. David?
I think it's really important to recognize when you ask the question about invisible, I think people with arthritis want it to be invisible to their friends and family and so on, but what you're hearing is it's invisible to the healthcare community. And that's striking, right? So doctors diagnose JRA as growing pains. Family practitioners, I was an athlete, an amateur athlete. Every time I complained of an issue, it was because I was over-exercising, and therefore I was misdiagnosed for 10 years. So.
Yeah, that's another critical perspective. Bill? Oh, is the mic still around? Oh, I'm sorry, Linda. I didn't know you had it.
I just wanted to follow up on that comment. I struggle with it all the time. Every comment that's been made today, I've given up cars, can't walk, can't garden, can't even think about kneeling. But something just struck me about being invisible was I dreaded coming here, walking around the Capitol and on the floors and sitting down, and I'm a veteran as well, and trying to talk about that and explain 13 operations, and then have members and staff, especially the staff, the younger, the 25-year-olds, and they look at you like, you couldn't have had that. I said, I have trouble walking in the room. And it's really invisible, and they were enlightened, but I'm thinking, I had 5 minutes. 3 people representing 1 million people in Kentucky, and there's only so many of us, but whoever's listening, please, we do think it's invisible because that's the reaction that I know I get, and you just mentioned it. I think a lot of us get that.
Yeah, that's critical. Kathy, hold on just a minute, and I'm going to see if we have virtual comments.
Thanks, Sue. Some comments are around the disfigurement. If people look at my hands or my feet, they'll see it, but if they look elsewhere, they might not see it. They might see that I can't sit as long, for example, in church. People have trouble understanding why I'm so tired and achy and don't participate in activities. So they just see that I'm not participating in things. I'm invisible because I'm missing things, and they don't realize why. People are writing about needing prescriptions for things like a standing desk at work. And then people are talking about sort of on a good or bad day, needing to have a walker to go to the grocery store, for example, then it's visible. But on another day, maybe they don't need a walker. And I might look healthy, you can't tell I'm in pain. I'm in pain most of the time, but you can't see the pain.
Right. Kathy, I'll go to you. Thanks for waiting.
That's no problem. My name is Kathy Wooten. I'm from Schenectady, New York. One thing that struck me was the people that mentioned about their difficulties in their job. I have a job that takes me about 40 minutes to get there, but when you got to get up, you're stiff to begin with. Takes time to get ready and this and that. Well, I had surgery for elbow replacements, and the issue that I ran into was not only resuming that stiffness and trying to get back into a routine, was driving to work, and I found that I was unable to do that. So I talked to my doctor, who suggested that I work from home, which they did provide, but I ran into some backlashes from my coworkers, from someone who's, I don't know who it was that mentioned about the
standing
desk, the rise, and everybody was getting special treatment, or she was getting special treatment, and people kind of felt that I was getting that same thing, even though now we're all working from home. I was the first, this is 2 years later, mind you, I was the first one that worked from home, but I dealt with a lot of attitudes, so to speak, that wasn't there for me, but they didn't understand where I was coming from.
Right.
You know, with having major surgery and having to try to fulfill my job, but also take care of myself at the same time.
Right. Such a lack of awareness about what you're going through, or lack of understanding. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. Linda, did you have the mic at some point? I lost track of the mic. We have a runaway mic. Okay. Sure.
Because I really didn't need it at that time. I didn't need a cane, so I didn't request one. Then about 2 years ago, I kind of upped it a little bit. But now in the last year, in the last few times I've traveled, I requested a wheelchair. And I have noticed a difference in response to my early boarding, because now I have the visual aids or the assistant to get me to the navigates for the airport.
That's so the visual cues. We heard Ed talk about a cane. We heard crutches, walkers, wheelchairs. It's like that visual cue is one way. David?
Yeah, I just wanted to, we talked about being invisible to friends and family sometimes, and then we talked about being invisible to healthcare providers sometimes, and it just occurred to me that clinical endpoints, because we're talking to the FDA, the old requirement for clinical trial endpoints were X-rays, so it had to be visible. So I think that the invisible part of the challenge for the FDA, and I know the FDA is looking at, very, very sincerely looking at different kinds of clinical trial endpoints for trial approval for drugs. So I just want to make that observation, because we're talking to the FDA that the visible, invisible is a really important aspect to endpoints for clinical trials.
It's a whole different way to look at invisibility. That's important. Oh, comment over here.
Yes. Hi, my name is Debbie Jo Johnston. I'm from Uniontown, Pennsylvania, and I was diagnosed at 27. And even from childhood, I had a lot of, pain and discomfort with my knees. They went out a lot, and the general consensus from people were like, well, you're young, take some pain pills, you'll be fine. And even after my diagnosis, I noticed that even if I didn't have knee braces on or some type of assistive device, I got treated a lot differently, like, well, you must be lying, or you can't be in that much pain, or something along that line. And it's just been very frustrating. And now that I'm 38 and I've actually lost over 100 pounds and I'm still in a massive amount of pain, people still look at me like, well, maybe she's not, lying or not in so much pain, but they still don't really seem to grasp just how life-changing, arthritis can be. And this is my first time being here, and I'm very happy to participate in everything the Arthritis Foundation is doing. And I thank everybody for being so friendly and, welcoming and having me and my husband here. And I'd also like to thank my husband. He is my caregiver, and I would probably be in a nursing home at this point without having him being able to help me. And I know things are unfortunately going to get worse, but I'm hopeful that in the future maybe things will be different for others. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Debbie. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any more virtual comments before we move on?
Yes, thanks. One comment here is related, for those who are lucky to have caregivers, there's those that maybe don't have anybody, or maybe their spouse doesn't understand and it breaks up their marriage. So that's a loss for them. And then going back to invisibility, one person wrote here they had 10 surgeries, but they try really hard to get dressed up and look nice when they go out in public. And people say to them, it doesn't look like you've had surgery. It doesn't look like you have a disease. And this general theme of people with OA try really hard to fit in and look nice, so you wouldn't know.
Great. All right. Thank you all so much. We are going to move into discussion questions, kind of similar to what we've been doing without the hand raising. First question is, and this is something some of you have already shared, so I'd like to hear from other folks who haven't had an opportunity yet. Right now, what would you say are your most significant signs and symptoms from your OA? Is there anyone who hasn't shared who has an answer to this one? Okay. Sorry. Is that mic okay? We can run one to you. Okay, great.
So I kind of wavered between the always versus never question.
Okay.
Because my primary symptoms are in my toe joints, and I'm fortunate in a way that I experience the pain when I'm exercising. So I almost feel like that's not as essential as walking and getting out of the car and so on. And as far as the invisibility goes, it took a long time. I was in the 6 to 10 year diagnosis category because I went to my podiatrist and my general practitioner. I even had surgery on my foot, and it wasn't until post-surgery that the PT said, well, of course, it's your OA. And I said, what? Like, nobody else had told me that's what it was. So I feel it's an insignificant symptom. It does concern me. It does come up almost daily for me. But listening to what everybody is talking about here, I'm a little bit terrified at what's coming down the road. And when I talk to my general practitioner, he's very matter of fact about the fact that I have arthritis and there's nothing to do about it, and we'll just see what happens to you as time goes by.
Thank you for sharing that, and I hope that this meeting can also make you hopeful, because there's a lot of people committed to doing work here. So thank you so much for sharing that. Other answers about what's happening right now with your symptoms? Linda, I might come back to you, because I know we talked a little bit before about how this affects you. What right now are the biggest symptoms? Can we get a mic here?
What are my symptoms?
What are the most significant signs and symptoms?
Oh, okay. My arthritis is my knee, my big toe. There's some in my back and spine, which is just diagnosed 3 weeks ago, pre-op, x-ray. But the primary symptom I feel now is pain. I have constant pain in my joint, my bone, which is radiating down to my knee, my calf area. And it's a tightness, a stiffness, and then it goes to sharp, sharp jarring pain in my knee. It's primarily the left knee where the arthritis is being treated. But in the last month, it has radiated over to my right knee. My orthopedist think it may be because I'm putting so much weight on this knee, although I have also some cartilage loss in the knee, which is why I do hope there's something to stop the progression, because I don't want to be at this point with this joint as well. So, that's kind of where I am.
Great, thank you. Kathy?
Hi, Kathy Gaylor from Watchung, New Jersey. I live with a level of pain usually every day, but recently, I would say in the last 6 months, fatigue has been the most debilitating symptom for me. It doesn't matter how many hours I sleep at night, whether I go to bed early or late, wake up early or late, or take a nap, the fatigue is overwhelming.
I saw some nods in the audience. It sounds like that's a common issue. Amanda, do we have any virtual comments?
Yes, thanks. I've lost flexibility in my hands. It's difficult to write, pick up small items, hold a glass, do household tasks, and so on. After taking NSAIDs for over 40 years, I can no longer use them, so I don't have a way to manage the pain. It's difficult. My mobility is limited and deteriorating over time with this progressive disease, a lot of pain, recognition of periodic flare-ups, causing sleep disruption, fatigue, and it impacts me emotionally at times.
All right, thank you. Oh, and another comment?
Hi, I'm Tracy from Long Island, and I don't know if it's like a side effect or a symptom, but the isolation, because I'm 33, I got diagnosed with knee OA when I was 30, so when my friends from church are like, let's go out to eat, I have to think ahead of time. I can't sit on a bar stool, I can't stand like at a concert, because I'll get the radiating pain and the fatigue right away. So it's almost like your spontaneity or spontaneousness is taken away from you. And I feel like the isolation is a big emotional side effect too.
That's such an important point. We're actually going to come in a minute to a question sort of along those lines, so that's a perfect thing to raise. Let me go to the next. Oh, I'm sorry, another point?
Sorry. Significant symptoms. I wheelchair bound at the age of 14. Didn't have time for it, raised my children. However, this is what has permanently put me in current symptoms because I do get up and walk. The OA cannot be repaired currently, has caused my kneecap to fuse to the upper part of my leg. So I have constant grinding of bone on bone, which in turn is now leading to a horrible nerve feeling in the bone. And it's not normal, but it's extensive, and in turn it affects many other. It's not just the knee now, it's down the leg, and just no comfort.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, any other Bruce?
Well, as I mentioned, when I was up front, it's now difficult for me to lift and move my wife and help out in the house, but a couple of us have talked about traveling, and I had just bought a new car last year. Well, I'm going to have to get rid of that now because I can't get in and out of it. And the other thing is, as a pastor, most of my work is supposed to be done on my feet in front of a congregation. And I've now brought in a stool simply because I can't stand for a whole service. It's just virtually impossible. Okay. And no way to hide that anymore.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. All right. Oh, one last comment on this, I think.
Sorry, I'm feeling awkward. I'm getting really stiff here. I know I've spoken before, but I wanted to say this because I know several of us here also have rheumatoid arthritis. So my OA actually, my joints lock. So and especially if I have an RA flare, I have it in my hips. And I've had it there longest, and so if I'm having a bad day, if I sit too long, they'll get stuck. Like I can't move them more than a couple of inches in any direction, and it's hard to tell the people that I work with. Like I generally have people who ask me, "Oh, are you feeling better? Are you feeling okay?" And I might come in with a cane, or I might walk normal, but if I have to miss work, I literally cannot walk across the room. So I will have joints that lock. So that's a big symptom for me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. All right. Okay, let's go to our next question. Nothing else on the virtual side, Amanda, before I move on? Just checking.
Just comments about having multiple surgeries and not able to tolerate NSAIDs.
Okay. So moving on, we've talked about significant signs and symptoms. Now we're getting into the sort of nitty-gritty of your day. So what are the specific activities that you can't do or that you've had to modify or now you need help with because of your OA? And where is Candace? Because I think Candace was going to offer some thoughts on this.
Hi, I'm Candace Donnelly. I'm from Edison, New Jersey. I'm not 50 yet, and I've already had 2 knee replacements due to osteoarthritis. So I modify a lot of things. Before the surgery, walking up and down the steps, couldn't do it. Carry the groceries up and down the steps, let alone walk around the grocery store. Love to go hiking and walking, couldn't do it. Very active with my kids, wasn't able to do it. I still have to watch what I do. Walking around yesterday, today it's very hard to walk. It hurts, my neck hurts. Didn't sleep well last night, and I still have a 3-hour ride ahead of me today. But there's a lot of things. I love to boat, can't boat. I can't go out when it's rough. I literally cannot walk for a couple days afterwards. As far as taking rides in the car, I used to drive to Florida all the time by myself. I haven't done it. Can't do it. It really impacts you. People say you're too young. You look fine. You have no idea. People just don't understand sometimes.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Are there other comments? Right here in the yellow.
I was a competitive swimmer, and I've had 4 neck surgeries to stop the progression. It hasn't taken the pain away, but I did learn. I found a snorkel that goes straight up, so I don't have to turn my head, so I can still swim. And if I don't feel good, I don't necessarily swim, but I'm in the water, which gives me great relief. Absolutely. And that is my exercise. I do it daily, and it has made a huge difference in how I feel, and especially mentally.
That's great. I was seeing nods because I think a lot of us modify. Are there a lot of you who've modified activities? Sarah, I don't know if you have a particular example you can share.
I love to crochet and knit and quilt and do beautiful needlepoint, but I've had to modify not only the types of hooks I'm using with the handles and grips. I don't do as much needlepoint now because I just can't hold the needle and the hoop frames unless I have a bigger frame that can be modified for it. You know, you lose your ability over time to be able to do the simple little activities. And I'm only 40. I was actually diagnosed by the time I was 19. So you have to find just the little, I guess we call them life hacks now, as to how you can do this a little easier.
Right. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sharon Steiner from Glendale, California. And that's my little red buggy back there. Reason it's not sitting next to me is because I can do some walking, but I'm a verified Disney freak. I live in Southern California and have an annual pass. I love going to fairs. I just love being outside. I love going to expos and things like that. And I'd say about 7 years ago, I stopped doing all that. I used to have an annual pass to Disneyland, and I'm saying, it's costing me $55 every time I go because I can't walk the whole thing. So I ended up buying that about 6 years ago. It's changed my life in the sense that now I can go to Disneyland, I can go to fairs, I can go to where I want to, but it's got a battery that's 25 pounds. So now if I want to go to Disneyland, I've got to think, okay, how do I get the battery out of the car? I needed to charge it up. I can't go on the spur of the moment because unless I have a charged up battery. I have 2 batteries, and I do have a backup one. There's just getting it in and out of the car. I'm able to, I used to be able to flirt and get guys to take it out of the car for me, but now that I'm 55 years old and wrinkled, now I have to sit there and play, oh me, oh my, I can't do this, can you help me? So it's finding the help. And sometimes I like to go these places, most of the time just by myself, but I got to figure out what time do I need to be there. I got to leave enough time to get there, find somebody, park in an area where there's a lot of people, and usually I do park in the handicap area because I do have a placard, and then I have to analyze, is that person in the handicap for themselves, or are they driving with somebody? So do I ask them, do I not ask them? I have to check them out. So there's a lot of planning now. I can't just get up and go anymore.
Almost sounds like you have to modify your modifications. Is that right?
Definitely.
Right. Do we have any virtual comments?
We do. Limiting the time on an airplane, so the world is getting smaller. I'm unable to walk my dog. I have to go places where the valet parking because I can't walk from a parking lot. It's humiliating to look like this.
That actually tees us up perfectly in a comment that Tracy had made earlier about sort of thinking ahead, and actually you just made the same comment about thinking ahead and planning. So our next discussion question is, does OA affect the way that you make decisions, that you think, we need to go to the next question, sorry. The way you plan, whether that's for today or long-term decisions, how does it creep in there? How does it affect the way you think about things and the way you plan? Candace, you're nodding. Okay, can we get a mic?
Candace Donnelly, Edison, New Jersey. Of course it does. If I want to do something over the weekend, I'm going to make sure Thursday and Friday I don't do anything that's going to irritate me. So you definitely have to think ahead. If you want to go out every once in a while, go out dancing with your friends, well, guess what? Saturday morning, you're staying in bed, you're relaxing, and you're going to not do anything. You're not carrying anything up the steps. Friday, you know what it's all about. And we definitely, I mean...
And you have to also plan after the fact. You know, a couple days after, you're not doing anything extra. You're hurting. So you plan before, like you're saying, and after.
Definitely.
Thank you for that. Is there a hand over here? And I know, Bill, yeah, you had mentioned this as well.
Yeah, I had made some notes. It was interesting when I looked at these questions and I looked at this one. Does it affect the way you think daily, I think it was. And I just thought about the effort that I went through. I was really glad to find out that I was coming here. But every time I looked at the Capitol, I just thought of the steps and the marble floors, and I was actually dreading it. And it's such an incredible opportunity. And it's just like, I don't want to over-dramatize, but it like struck fear in me. Like now I've got to really think. First of all, staying in Florida for 3 months to be warm. I didn't bring my scooter with me, which I wish I would have had. Then I would have had to think about getting it on the airplane. Do I rent one here? That's too expensive. I just changed jobs. So then I had to think about, well, I got my cane, my BiPAP machine, my laptop bag. How am I going to carry that? Get it on the airport. Then I went through the whole early boarding thing. You look like you're too young for that. And I can't lift over 25 pounds because of my shoulder, so got to put it in the overhead. But I had to think about all this stuff. I was worried about how was I going to get from where was this bus going to be to get to this place? Was it going to be more than 20 yards? And it's like I spent hours thinking about this stuff to meet with reps for 5 minutes. Right. And it just was amazing that was one event. That was just coming here. I had to think about, I have this cream that I put on my knees that costs like $300 or $400, and it's more than 3 ounces. Are they going to confiscate it? And I didn't want to take the chance, but I didn't want to be without it. And just having to think about it. Yeah. One event every day. And then the other thing I was thinking about was, a lot of these have been mentioned, but I'll mention it again. It affects other people. My wife is so supportive. She had to learn to be supportive. She didn't realize until she started going to all these events that how debilitating it is. And she's had to help me with all my surgeries. I had to end up sleeping in a lift chair because I couldn't sleep in my own bed. So for a year and a half, I had to do that. She took care of all that. But if we want to go out with friends and do something, well, is it on the second story? Can Bill go? Can Bill do the stairs? We went to a restaurant out on a pier. Well, it's pretty far out there. Oh, they got a cart. Okay. And it's embarrassing, and you feel bad. I don't want to have her or our friends not go someplace because we have to see if Bill can do it. Because I can do it. I'll just pay later. We all know that. You're in pain that night and the next day. So, you only think about it from the time you get up till the time you lay your head on the pillow. So I just wanted to share that. But I know everybody's lived all that. I lived everything people have said.
Sure, I'm seeing a lot of nods, definitely. Okay. Oh, Cindy?
Sorry. My daughter and I came in early Sunday, so we went to Arlington, and from Arlington I wanted to walk over the bridge with her, and she said to me, well, what if halfway through you can't make it? I was like, well, I'll figure that out on the way. And then I was here 5 years ago with my son, and when I was here with my son, we walked up the hill to Arlington, walked down, then walked through the whole mall. And Katie said that, well, did you do this with Matt? And I was like, no, 5 years ago, didn't even think about the walk. And this time it was like, wow, I don't know if I can make it over the bridge.
Right. And I've heard people say it kind of sneaks up on you. Linda?
A couple things going on my mind. One I want to share with you is that, I have to think every morning when I get up, what is it I need once I get downstairs? What do I need to take with me? Because once I'm down there, I don't want to have to walk back. And I just kind of shared before, my last comment, how the difference between what's happening now in the progression and how it's infecting the other knee. Because 2 days ago, I was heading back upstairs, and I literally had to stop because I couldn't put the weight on the good knee. So that's one. I have to plan in the morning what I need because I can't navigate the stairs, and vice versa in the evening too. Right? If I need water, I better take it up with me because I just may not have it at night. And secondly is planning for my medications. I exercise three days a week. Got to strengthen the knees. And before I go, I have to be medicated. So I have to set my alarm 2 hours before I need to in order to take the pain medicine so I'll be able to do my 45-minute exercise class. Almost pain-free, with minimum pain. And the other, in terms of long-term planning, vacations. I would plan my vacation time with and around my injections. We're going to take vacation. I need to wait and get that injection a month before we actually leave.
So a lot of advanced planning, it sounds like. Do we have any virtual comments before we go to the next question?
Yes, there are several about having to limit the activities daily, that you have to think about every move that you make prior to doing so. It leads to a frustration. How long can I go on like this? It's limiting my activities, my world.
Great, so very similar to what we're hearing in the room. Okay, let's go ahead. We'll go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. There's a comment behind you as well. Yep.
Right, so my name's Alex Barmore. I'm 19, and I currently do not have osteoarthritis, but have torn my left ACL twice, and then my right ACL once, and then I've had shoulder surgery to repair my labrum and instability with tendons and stuff. So coming to this conference, I had to double check to make sure that I am not a victim, but will likely develop osteoarthritis at one point. So in terms of being 19 and planning like long term, and then listening to all of you guys speak today with the likelihood that I might develop the disease is just kind of scary, considering I have yet to start a career, a family, anything of that sort. So then if I get osteoarthritis at the age of 25, at the age of 30, whatever it may be, if it happens, like the fact that I will have to start to plan like long term, can I have a active job? Will I have to be in an office? Can I do things with kids? And it's just kind of weird and unsettling to know that I'm here, sitting here, likely to get the disease, and listening to all of you about how painful it is, when I can honestly say that in terms of the invisibleness of it, I would have never expected to hear half of the stories that I've heard today. So I give all of you a lot of credit in just the sense that, I mean, long term, knowing that this thought of it looming over my head at one point, that it could happen at any moment, is just kind of scary to think about.
Thank you for sharing that. It's a lot to take in from where you're sitting. I appreciate that. And then Fletcher, this will be our last comment of this question.
I actually have a question related to long-term planning, and that is, how many people here, if you could have gone to your doctor, filled out a questionnaire, gotten some information from your doctor, and he could have given you a score on the likelihood that you would feel the way you do now, how many of you would want to know that score when you were 20 or 19 or 30? How many? So if there was some way to get that score, you would really appreciate it. All right.
Okay, thanks, Fletcher. Okay, we're going to our last question before the break. We only have 5 minutes, but we're going to kind of continue the theme of this question, pick it up after the break. So the question is, what treatments or therapies are you using right now? And do these treatments or therapies allow you to do what you want to do? And then sort of a second piece is, are there inconveniences or challenges? So Sarah, you've got your hand up.
Ours is twofold. I have OA in my upper spine. My husband's just a mess. His spine is actually 9 herniated discs. There's a whole lot of things going on. For my treatment, I have a safety-sensitive position. I have to have a doctor's note to even take a Tylenol. So I currently don't use anything because then I cannot go to work. For my husband, the only option they kept telling him and have for years is, here, have some more Percocets. So they have him on up to about 9 a day without any other treatment options. So for a lot of us, we're just looking for any therapy that is not here, have some painkillers, and go home.
I know Amy, I'll come to you in a minute. I know Amy had a thought on this question, sort of a positive note on treatments.
That was a different question, I think, wasn't it, Suzanne?
Is there anything you've used that has helped you?
Okay. Well, I have, I do.
I'm sorry, you're right. It is a little bit differently worded, but yes, it's that idea. It's a treatment that helped you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that you want me to use that one?
That'd be great.
Okay, I have before used Synvisc injection in my knees, and that did temporarily help. Is that the one that you wanted me to use?
Yeah, that's the story.
I have had Synvisc injections in my knees, and those did temporarily help. And then I wound up going on to a surgical intervention, which was a mosaic procedure. In a layman's term, that would be a cartilage transplant. Now, you want to talk about one of the most painful procedures I've ever had done. It was that, but instead of having to resort to a total knee replacement or a partial knee replacement, I have my knee and my own cartilage, and that was one of the most wonderful and blessed interventional tools I could have ever done. And I think if people would pursue treatment earlier on and be diagnosed earlier, if we could only take that on earlier. I also do use pain therapy. I see a pain therapist and use that. I also use massage therapy. And I go once a month for massage therapy, and that's great.
Thank you, Amy. That story jumped out at me because we didn't have a lot of people that were excited about a therapy, but you thought that one had worked well. Oh, right here, yes.
I don't think I said my name before. I'm Dina Gold from Bethesda, Maryland. And like the other woman before, I lost about 50 pounds, which I think has helped maintain that. I also learned about ASU through the arthritis website, and I do take that. I kind of take it as an act of faith. I don't know if it's helping or not, but I'm hoping that over the long term it might be beneficial, and I would be interested in hearing from anybody else who's had experience with that. It's like avocado soy unsocifiable or something. I have a picture of it in my phone if anybody is curious about it.
Do we have a comment here?
Yes, my name is Thomas Johnson. I'm here with my wife, and I know that aqua therapy was really good for my wife. Unfortunately, the area where we're at is a rural area, and the aqua therapy that was available is shut down. And was hoping that there would be more places like the YMCA, places like that would have, offer things like that, because it is a lot less on the joints. The heat of the water and things like that helped tremendous, I know, with her.
Great, thank you for sharing that. There's some comments here. Is there a mic? Oh, I'm sorry, you're first.
Hi. Nobody, I think, has mentioned acupuncture. I've used acupuncture since I was diagnosed in my early 30s. Not acupuncture like acupuncturist over the door and you just walk in the door. A holistic doctor who was trained for 8 years, and she was a neurologist and a psychiatrist before she was a holistic doctor. It is life-saving for me. I believe it saved my life. I can go to her and have a full 3-hour holistic session and just, fall asleep. She's watching for me to make sure I'm not passing out, but just totally relax, and the pain goes away. And so it does work if you give it a chance and allow your body to. I know some people it will not work for. It doesn't work for everyone. But also I have a great primary care physician, and I always have some pain medicine on hand just in case.
All right, this front row, the second row, do we have a mic somewhere nearby? Oh, got it, okay.
I wake up in pain every day. I have pain every day, as a lot of people here do. I kind of put it in the background of my mind sometimes. And as I said before, I am a Disney nut. I do have an annual pass, and then when I'm there, I put it in the background. When I fill my mind with other things. I don't like taking opioids. I refuse to take them. But another thing that I do, if the pain gets real bad, or once I stop at the end of the day, then I realize, what did you do today? And I'm in pain. I am in California. We do have a new legal law, and I do take advantage of it. I do take medical marijuana at times when it gets real bad. But I don't do that every day either, because I don't like anything that messes with my mind. So.
Did you have a comment too?
Yes, I forgot to say my name. I'm Deborah Schoening from Bend, Oregon, and I go to a massage for an hour and a half every week. And I told my husband I would go out and pick cans off the highway if we ever went broke, so I could have those massages. And it does more for my mental health, I think, than it does for my physical health. But when I leave there, I have energy. I just feel like I have put that behind me, and it's something that I have to do. I'm missing it right now. Today was my day, so it really has made a difference.
All right. And Bill?
Yeah, Bill, I know I've talked a lot, but I just wanted to follow along with some of those comments. When I was 2 or 3 operations ago, a couple of years ago, it hit me. I was 310 pounds, and I decided I was part of my own problem. And the doctor wouldn't even blame it on the weight, but I know what the weight does, and I said I have to do something. So I committed to going to this weight management program, so I changed my diet, and I started exercising. And fortunately, one of my therapists, who's awesome, was a swimmer, and she kind of told me go in the pool. And So I could only do, I could swim or exercise for like 5 minutes because for 35 years I didn't exercise ever. And, but I worked myself up in after 10 weeks while I was rehabbing my knee. And so I worked myself up and I can swim 700 yards a day now. And I can swim and I can ride a recumbent bike. And they're the only two things I can do, but I can do them. Yeah. So I think my message for me was find something I can do. It may not be for everybody. And then I just changed my whole diet and everything that you guys say, don't eat this, I don't eat it. And everything you say you should eat this, I eat it. Miraculously, it seems to work. Okay. So that's been, I wanted to do stuff as natural as possible so as to not, injure my kidneys. I watched my dad die of kidney disease, and he had the same arthritis, and he took a lot of pills every day, and I know where they ended up, and I just don't want to do that. So that's an important message from me.
Great. Thank you, Bill. And I realize I've kept you 5 minutes into your break, so I'm going to see if we had virtual comments, and then we'll close this out.
We do. Comments regarding Tylenol being a joke. She would consider knee replacement, but she's only 32. Advil seems to work, but there's side effects. Doctors are saying possibly replacements if it's absolutely necessary. Another person, yes, she did have both knees replaced and is very grateful for the technology. Uncertain of the extended benefits, but trying some Cosum, DS, and turmeric. As PT, don't want to push it, but done with PT and can be helpful to keep going, and keep moving.
Great, thank you. And so if any of you have comments or thoughts that we didn't get to, please just keep them in your pocket because we'll want to come back to those later. So right now I'm going to let you all stand up and stretch and move around. We're going to meet back in here and start right at 3:20. So if you can try to be back here just a minute before so we can get started. Thanks so much. Let me know when we're done. I'm happy to take one, yeah. You guys did a great job. I hope you felt good about it. Awesome. Yeah. You were great, John.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you please take your seats, our program is about to begin.
Great. Could I have all of the panelists for the second panel please come take your places? All right. We're on.
You like my question?
I think you did fine. Okay. All right, it looks like the gang's all here. Some people might be filtering in, but I do want to make sure we go ahead and get started so we can stay on time. So I hope everyone got a chance to stretch legs and move around. It sounds like we've started some really good conversations. I just heard some stories about patients connecting and sharing ideas with each other, which is wonderful. We're going to shift a little bit now from those daily impacts, although that will still be a part of the talk, or part of the conversation, now into how do we treat this disease? What are patients' experiences with therapies and treatment? So we have with us another panel of 5 great folks from all around the country. We have David Shuey, Angela Tucci, Fletcher Johnson, Jan Wyatt, and Cindy Copenhaver. And again, we're going to hold our applause until the end, but I know we all very much appreciate you all being here to share your stories, and we look forward to hearing from you. So we're going to start with David. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. My name is David Shuey. I'm 67 years old. I'm retired after a 47-year business career. Ironically, my business career was in compliance and risk management for global clinical trials and products liability for medical devices and pharmaceuticals. So I was an interesting cross between my volunteer life and my work life. Probably wondering why I'm even standing here, because if you look at the picture, that's me after riding my bicycle across America, 3,600 miles in 60 days, finished on my 60th birthday. I did that to raise money and awareness of arthritis. So, but I have osteoarthritis. So I'm one of those people that says, I have arthritis, arthritis doesn't have me, and I'm just going to power through this. And, the definition of pain and suffering. Pain is real and it's what you feel, and suffering is how you choose to deal with it. So, but when I started my ride across America, I worried about 3 things. I worried about my mental health, because people said, what, are you crazy? The second thing I worried about was mechanical failure of my trusty steed right there. And the third thing I worried about was my left knee blowing up and not being able to finish the ride. So I have osteoarthritis in my neck, my lumbar and cervical regions of my spine, my wrist, and my left knee. So that bicycle that you see in the picture is a modification. And one of the things that occurred to me when I was talking with somebody else during the break, that one of the impacts we didn't talk about is the cost. You have to modify your life. Those carts are not cheap. They're not free. That bicycle is custom built because in order for me to ride, I have to have a custom fit bicycle. So let's talk about what I do now to treat my disease. I take a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory twice a day. I tried Synvisc injections in my knee until I went on Medicare, and they wouldn't pay for them anymore. And I had limited success with it anyhow. I use massage therapy, which I think someone wrapped it up probably more relaxation and mental health than physical well-being. The massage is helpful temporarily. I work with a personal trainer 3 days a week on strength, endurance, and balance training, because one of the things that you lose when you have osteoarthritis and as you get older is your balance. And of course, everyone knows you have osteoarthritis and you fall, then you have a hip fracture, and it just cascades from there. I ride my bicycle more than 100 miles a week. I'm leaving tomorrow to do a double century in Florida. That's 2 100-mile days in a row. And what I haven't done yet, and I've been offered both, is surgery and opioids. So I'm holding off on both of those as long as I possibly can. I have a history of addiction in my family, so that frightens me a little bit. And surgery, I used to have all of the med device companies that did implants for ankles and knees as clients. So I handled all the metal on metal claims for one of my clients, the class action lawsuits. So that frightened me a little bit, so I've held that off as long as I possibly can. But I know that I have surgery in my future, particularly my lower back. I have spinal stenosis and spondylolisthesis. So that's in my future. What can the medical field do to help me and help people like me? And is number one, I think, is discover biomarkers and other predictors that can be used. We have 2 19-year-olds here that have had ACL and meniscal tears. We know they're more likely to develop OA in those joints, but it would be nice to be able to have conclusive or a highly reliable predictors to know that. Second, develop and approve non-addictive pain medications. I didn't have success with COX-2 inhibitors, so I use NSAIDs. The one I'm using works for me right now. But we'd like to be able to manage our pain, and that might be devices like TENS units and things like that. Nobody talked about TENS, and I don't know if it's working for anybody. It'd be interesting to talk about that. The third thing would be discover tools for prognosis. With cancer and other diseases, we know we can tell by the presence of certain proteins whether the disease is going to progress quickly or slowly. It'd be nice to know once you're diagnosed, how soon am I going to be facing the kinds of decisions that you all talked about today. And fourth is develop and approve drugs that will stop disease progression. To reverse the progression of OA, I think that's a tough one, right? I'd just like to be able to stop the progression so diagnose it early and have therapies that stop the progression. I think those would be the 2 priorities if I had to list 2 priorities of the 4 things I mentioned. And I really appreciate the FDA being here. I also sit as the first lay person on the American Board of Internal Medicine Rheumatology subspecialty board, and it's a privilege for me to be a patient advocate and a patient representative for people with arthritis. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, David, for getting us started. And next we're going to hear from Angela.
Sorry, I have a mini cold, so if I sniffle into the microphone, I apologize. I don't mean to. Good morning. First off, thank you for letting me take the time, or you taking the time to listen to my story. It's been a journey that's tested me both physically and mentally. My name is Angela Tucci. I am 19 years old. I am currently a sophomore at Endicott College, where I'm pursuing my bachelor's degree in exercise science. I have committed myself to the field of health in wellness with a focus of injury prevention. One of my biggest priorities in my life right now is maintaining an active and healthy lifestyle. When I was 15 years old, my dream of becoming a collegiate soccer player was very much within my reach. I was an underclassman varsity player on one of the top teams in my home state of New Jersey. But then in an instant, my future was altered. I was sprinting downfield on a defensive play in a championship game, took a sharp pivot, and stole the ball. That was the moment. It was a game-changing play, but it was also a life-changing play for me personally. I felt my knee give out. I heard that dreaded pop and fell to the ground. My head and heart knew what had just happened. I tore my anterior cruciate ligament in my lateral and medial meniscus. My season was over, but I was determined that this painful injury would not derail my dreams. I underwent surgery, opting for a patellar tendon graft. Recovery took a year. It was hard work, emotionally and physically, but I was determined. 12 months later, I reclaimed my spot on the team and was reunited with my teammates. It was now my junior year, and I was back on the field. And my dreams for college were still in reach again. But lightning did strike twice for me. Another big game, another big moment, another big tear to my ACL meniscus. And worst of all, another surgery and another full year of recovery, this time using a tendon from my quadricep. My dream of playing collegiate soccer was over. My way forward was unclear. It took time to find my passion and truly discover the meaning in all of this. What I thought were roadblocks may have really been detour signs, taking me on a new path. My experiences have shaped my outlook on life, have shaped my dedication to health and wellness even more so. As I entered my freshman year of college, my heart was heavy. I wouldn't be wearing a uniform and taking on the field, but I was in the gym all the time. I wouldn't be wearing a uniform and taking I had grown accustomed to daily strength and conditioning. My hard work was recognized, and I was offered and accepted a position of becoming a group fitness instructor at my school. Now I'd be putting together group sessions and workout plans for others to assist them in their physical fitness goals. Knowing that I have the power to make a difference in the lives of others doing something that I love to do every single day makes me want to achieve my goals that much more. I want to lead by example. I want to continue to practice what I preach as long as I possibly can. But you see, the likelihood that I am able to do this much past the age of 40 decreased significantly after the tearing of my ACL meniscus. As everyone in this room knows, osteoarthritis is not a disease that should be pushed aside. It is not something that can be fixed with Advil or Tylenol twice a day. This disease can change someone's life. It changes their way of living, the quality of their life, the activities that one may or may not be able to do. My chances of getting osteoarthritis have the potential to putting a stop to my dreams, and that frightens me a lot. At age 19, it scares me to think that one day I might experience debilitating pain. One of the things that got me through 24 months of physical therapy was the idea that there was light at the end of the tunnel. After surgery, after recovery, I will never have to deal with knee or injury pain again. Later to find out, the worst has yet to come. As a high school athlete, I never would have anticipated being at such a high risk of a degenerative, painful disease such as osteoarthritis. After doing research on the disease and meeting many of you, I could candidly say that I am terrified for the future. I am typically not one to live in fear, but the thought of giving up my lifestyle and my future career is very frightening. As a young individual with what, I think it's because I'm sick right now, guys, I'm sorry. With what some might say a stubborn but determined mindset, I would do whatever it takes to treat the onset of osteoarthritis. I don't believe there is enough treatment today to prevent the disease, not enough to allow me to fulfill my dreams 20 years from now. I will undoubtedly need the assistance from scientists and clinicians to do research and development of new treatments to prevent the progression of OA. I will need drug developers and regulators to take interest in my quality of life so I can pay it forward. I will not have the capability to help others if I cannot be helped myself. I wish there would have been a treatment for me at the time to prevent injury for OA. My hope is that by sharing my voice today, we can change the way forward for new treatments, new options, especially, and new outcomes. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Angela. And next we're going to hear from Fletcher.
Good afternoon. My name is Fletcher Johnson. I'm from the Silicon Valley, and I like to play with computers. Go figure. Aside from these various activities that have changed, a few other activities I heard about: dancing. I used to love to dance. But skiing, karate, ACLs ripped in half, sprained knees, that was part of growing up. And over time, my knees took a little bit of a beating. This is what my knees look like now. My left knee looks in pretty good shape. I only have moderate osteoarthritis there. Looking at my right knee, some of you may cringe. Bone on bone just isn't fun. But it's interesting. Every time I go to see an orthopedic surgeon, if it's for my shoulder, whatever, the very first question is, when do I get to replace your legs or your knees? No matter if I even mention my knees, it's when do I get to replace them? Now, one of the reasons why is because, yes, I should be in pain, but I'm not, which is good because I can't take most pain medications. I can't take aspirin, can't take Tylenol, can't take ibuprofen, can't do any of that stuff. Narcotics give me massive migraines. It's horrible. But what I do for treatment is this. This is a ride I did just last summer. Like David, I am a cyclist. This was a 130-mile ride with 15,000 feet of climbing in the California Sierra Mountains. When I walk into my doctor's office, he tells me that this is the only reason I'm walking into his office. The constant work. I'm not running. I can't walk. I can walk short distances, but if I travel, I have to have a cane. Because I can't be halfway through the airport, my knee starts to hurt. I got to get to the other gate. So I have to be very careful because even just walking from here down the hallway, all of a sudden my knee could hurt. The beauty of a bike is with clip-on pedals, I can pedal with one leg. My knee starts to hurt, I just stop pedaling. I just pedal with the other leg. So it's a great treatment, but I know at some point I'm going to reach the point where I'm going to have so much pain that even this isn't going to stop it. And today, this instant, my doctors say, cool, we'll replace your knees because I'm a good knee candidate replacement because I like to bike ride. But these are my knees. I've grown very fond of them. I want to keep them. And I know that once I have them replaced, the minute my knees become metal, every 10 years, time for another knee replacement. I'm not looking forward to that. And I hear people say, oh, I got my knees replaced. It was the best thing I ever did. They were in pain. I'm not in pain, fortunately. And I sympathize with those of you who are, but my bike riding has helped me stay away from the pain. But when I'm at the point I have to make the decision, what I don't have today and what I desperately want is the ability to do a search and find out what technologies are currently in research, when that research is scheduled to be done, and when, if that technology is successful, will it become available? Because there's nothing worse than going in and finally having your knee replaced, and 6 months later finding out that that study you read about 4 years ago at Stanford, I've read about quite a few of them, has been completed, and now they can actually repair that cartilage. Not even transplant, but repair. And these studies are going on right now. But how do I, as a normal person who doesn't speak medical jargon, find out about those and find out what their status is and when they'll be completed? Because if my knees start to hurt to the point where I have to consider a knee operation, give me the ability to say, oh, hey, here's this thing. I read about it 10 years ago. The study's being wrapped up, and in 6 months, we'll know if it's a treatment that will be available from a practitioner. You know what? If that's the case, I'll wait that 6 months, even if I'm in pain. But today, I don't have that choice. I have to go to my doctor and hope that they are up to date. And even more, hope that they'll say, no, you know what, even though I'd love to do surgery on you, wait 6 months for this result, because I know they won't. So that's the treatment I want. And it's not a treatment. It's a way to find out what treatments I can get. Because once my knees are metal, there's no going back. Suze?
Great. Thank you, Fletcher. Okay, next we're going to hear from Jan.
Welcome, everyone, and thanks to everyone for the comments that you shared. It's more comfortable for me to sit down. I'm in my very late 60s and live in Cortez, Florida. My name is Jan Wyatt, and in the winter I spend the time in the rural town of Round Hill, Virginia. I'm a retired nurse practitioner and nurse educator and executive and a veteran. I served in both the Navy and the Army Nurse Corps. And I've been pretty active most of my life, liking to hike and bike and ski, and now play golf a lot because I have a great left knee replacement. And with good support such as my walking sticks and my good high-top hiking boots, I can enjoy life. Right now, my OA is most troublesome in my back. I can remember being screened as a young adolescent in school for scoliosis and told I had a bit of a crooked back. And now that I'm in my 60s, it definitely has progressed. And so I have stenosis and a variety of other things that have created degenerative disc disease. But it was interesting that these sort of began to bother me in my 20s and 30s, but it wasn't until my 40s in which I received a formal diagnosis of osteoarthritis. I kind of knew I had arthritis, and I think I've heard from a lot of people today that they kind of knew they had arthritis, but it wasn't somehow legitimate, or it didn't seem to count until the doctor diagnosed it. My OA management has included, as I mentioned, a total left knee replacement. I also have great physical therapy and the use of dry needling, which some of you may have gotten benefit from. Heat, electrostimulation, and I actually have my own electrostim kit at home. Lots of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, exercise, and stretching. But one of the things that I began to appreciate as a nurse practitioner as I was working, that as OA began to bother me, I began to see how it absolutely bothered a lot of my patients in my primary care clinic. And so that's when I really tried to begin to teach my nurse practitioner students to really hone in on the importance of musculoskeletal assessment, because it really wasn't a very exciting part of the physical exam. You didn't have to have a stethoscope or an otoscope or anything kind of fancy to use, but you had to pay attention to range of motion, and that was really important. What I was able to see in primary care practice is that there were a lot of instances in which patients with chronic illness had a hard time managing their illnesses because of arthritis. They had multiple stress and overuse syndromes within their joints, and it was quite a problem. I also began to see that most of the patients that were in my practice that were struggling with arthritis were disproportionately women, and some of the research begins to also confirm that. Indeed, together with my two sisters, we have together, all three of us, had 6 synthetic Hyalgin or Synvisc knee injections, 4 total knee knee arthroscopies, 4 total knee replacements, 2 ankle fusions, 4 spinal epidural injections, and now I have 2 daughters, 3 daughters, 2 of which have had ACL reconstruction and repair. So arthritis is part of our family. And indeed, as I've accommodated my arthritis, my husband and my family really, we've had to just invite arthritis to join our family. RA and OA, and we have to accommodate a lot of activities, so we consider it part of the family. And surgical intervention has really been helpful for me, and it's been able to establish a lot more stability for me in terms of walking, but it's not a cure in any way, shape, or form. And for me, the future really includes moving to a one-story home, definitely buying a vehicle with a high floorboard, making sure I have back supports wherever I go. Massage is a great form of therapy, thermocare, heat bands, and transition to sneakers, and particularly high-top sneakers. And because we all have to laugh sometimes, I like to tell a story about going to a golf course, a very fancy one. So you offload your clubs, and the young gentlemen, kids, teenagers come up and offload the clubs, and they take care of the heavy lifting, which is good. And I'm sitting in the cart, and I'm changing into a pair of high-top sneakers that were very valuable to me. They were Air Jordan Signature high-top sneakers, and by the time I tied them, I had gathered a cadre of teenage boys around my cart wanting to know where they could get a pair. Going forward, I have wishes and concerns. The greatest concern as a patient is that arthritis poses a significant medical challenge, and we have limited treatment options, and most of them are really focused on pain. Arthritis is a prevalent chronic illness. It complicates care and the ability of other people to manage other chronic illnesses. And right now we have multiple diagnostic codes, but we still don't have a formal diagnosis, often don't have a formal diagnosis from providers, particularly at the time of joint injury. Going forward, it would really be great to have a lot of new ways to measure the impact of osteoarthritis, and I would hope that we would think about expanding opportunities for measurement in clinical trial. Particularly, one of the things that available for a lot of people with chronic illness management is they have a score they manage. Either it's their cholesterol or their glucose score or their blood pressure, and I think it would be great to have a joint score. Maybe you get a score of 1 for a joint injury, maybe you get another score if you're a wee bit overweight, and then that adds up to help predict how your future might be, or help outline things that you might begin to focus on in terms of treatment. It seems that we also need much more than measures of pain and function, which are also often the key measures for clinical trials. We've heard today from people that have talked about how sleep and fatigue are significant symptoms. So going forward, I would hope the clinical trials will begin to incorporate some really significantly expand their measurement of how a particular drug or treatment might be effective, but not only looking at pain and function, and even looking at how those two are interrelated, but also looking at such symptoms as, quality of life, sleep, and also fatigue. And we're in a digital age now. I don't know if anybody know that. We just heard from Fletcher. He's a computer guy. We have a lot of digital tools that are accessible to us. So if we're interested in really managing and looking at an individual's true lived experience with osteoarthritis, it's important to add some more tools through a digital platform. So I hope that the last thing I would want to make sure that we do is to make sure that the medical community and the healthcare community begin to take over arthritis treatment development. Right now, the commercial market owns arthritis care. You can get Australian Dream Cream, you can get Move On and Joint Juice, and you name it. So we really need to make sure that treatment is evidence-based so that we can know what's best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jan. And next we're going to hear from Cindy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cindy Copenhaver. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm 60 years old for the next 2 weeks, and I live in the south suburbs. I'm a certified personal trainer and a group fitness instructor and a certified aquatic instructor. I've been instructing fitness classes for nearly 40 years. At one time I had taught up to 20 hours per week, participated and instructed the classes. I became certified with the Arthritis Foundation 15 years ago when they had a certified aquatic and land-based fitness class. It was research-based. I also had the opportunity to speak in 2008 at a congressional briefing on the correlation between exercise and diabetes and arthritis. I wanted to understand more about arthritis as my mom had a terrible case of osteoporosis. At one time, my mom was 5'7" and wore size 22. She passed away at 4'8" and weighed 90 pounds. So she had just a horrible, painful life. Couldn't breathe because there was no lung capacity or room for the lung capacity. At that time, it was hard for me to open. When I first started with the Arthritis Foundation volunteering, it was hard for me to open a jar without severe pain in my right thumb. I was in a car accident when I was 15 years old, fracturing the third vertebrae, cervical vertebrae. So living with neck pain and headaches was just a norm for me, which continues on a weekly basis. Back then, I was told it was just arthritis. About 13 years ago, I took a training so I could train trainers for exercise. My pain treatment options include, I try everything, aquatic exercise and low-impact aerobics, essence oils, tiger balm, wearing the knee brace when the material doesn't, I don't have a reaction, Epsom salt baths, acupuncture, shoe inserts, Loxicam for anti-inflammatory. Upsets my stomach. I had it a couple years ago, quit taking it, started taking it 3 weeks ago when I went to see the doctor knowing that I was coming here, been taking it for 3 weeks. Last night I thought I was having a heart attack. I was trying to think of who do I still know that's still in the hotel because I got this horrible pain. That's the only thing that's different in my life. So whether or not that's related, I'm just saying that's my experience. I don't know if it's related or not. At that same doctor's visit, I got a corticosteroid injection in my left knee. It took the pain away that day. I got to go dancing that weekend. I take vitamin D supplements and calcium, Excedrin, migraine for my headaches and neck pain, massage therapy, acupuncture, and cupping treatments. I take supplements, and it grosses me out when I see a whole handful of pills that I have to take. Just kind of grosses me out. Previously, I do have a low tolerance for pain meds also. I had a topical cream that my legs broke out in a rash. I took another anti-inflammatory that upset my stomach. And I took a Soma, muscle relaxant. And I was teaching I took it as directed by the doctor, took it 5 nights. I was the 5th day into treatment. And I was teaching my aquatic class. I'm in class, and all of a sudden the windows in the pool started moving on me. Got out of the pool, went to my desk, sat there till the movement went away, went home and slept it off, never touched it again. I also had an injection in my right knee. Aleve and Tylenol, those things have not really helped. My normal day, I may or may not sleep at night depending on the pain. Sometimes it seems that the ligament on the lateral side of my knee snaps over the bones. I can't straighten my leg. You got to kind of like wiggle around so you can straighten your leg out. Sometimes it seems like, the femur and tibia are rubbing together, waking you up in excruciating pain. Once again, you have to readjust your body and try to straighten out. Sometimes the burning sensation in both knees and throbbing just makes you want to cry. I don't sleep very well at night, cannot sleep on my side because my knees cannot touch together without pain. I start my day out by getting ready, going downstairs. Sometimes I can go down in proper alignment. Sometimes you go down sideways, 1 stair at a time. Sometimes I hold on to the rails and kind of swing down. So you 1 stair at a time so you don't put any pressure on the knees. When I get to work, some days it's a good day, some days it's not. I still instruct land-based and aquatic exercises. The land-based, I have lots of restrictions. The aquatics work out really well. Sometimes when I do teach the land-based class, I'm limping out of class. It hurts, it's structural. So I personally knew that exercise helped relieve my neck and back and upper back pain and sometimes the pain in my thumb. It also helped with the carpal tunnel that developed in both arms and hands. As I was instructing a land-based fitness class about 3 years ago is when my right knee went out. I couldn't walk out of class. I went to the orthopedic doctor who prescribed the pain meds, muscle relaxants, and physical therapy. The x-ray showed a torn meniscus and cartilage. I continued to instruct my fitness classes with limitations. However, the aquatic classes always made me feel good. As I treated my right knee, my left knee started hurting. I believe that was because of the poor alignment and posture due to the right knee. The x-ray showed compartmentalized osteoarthritis. All bones were affected. Walking became a daily chore. If I was able to do stairs, I would not be able to walk afterwards. And I didn't have to wait until the pain, and then I would have to wait until the pain in the hips resided. As I had mentioned, I tried several medications with different side effects, so I discontinued to use all of them. Here's where I can help. I'm a licensed massage therapist. A lot of you have mentioned massage, just threw that out there. I became a massage therapist 7 years ago. I've studied a lot about essential oils and have tried them several times for the pain relief and anti-inflammatory benefits. I continue, like I said, to instruct exercise classes. I don't want to give up. I have a 6-year-old granddaughter and 3 2-year-old twins, a boy and a girl. Last summer, we were at Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, and once again, I had a hard time walking, but I wasn't giving up. We were all going to the dolphin show. When we got there, it was filled, and we couldn't get in. My daughter said to the kids, not meaning to be mean, we missed the show because Nana could not walk. I know my daughter doesn't even know I remember this. I felt so bad. I could still cry when I think about it, but I still get down on the floor to play with them and will do so as long as I can still get up. What happened to me? I've tried to stay healthy, have worked out 3 to 4 times weekly for most of my life. But as my knees kept hurting, my intensity level of my fitness workouts had changed, so I gained weight, which is not good for my knees, right? They tell us we need to lose weight. I instruct a senior citizen fitness class, and at times they are doing more in class than I am. It makes me sad, embarrassed, and disappointed in myself that I want to serve them the best I can. I feel that I'm not a good instructor, as what I'm trying to reinforce for their lifestyle is not helping me. My knees do not touch anymore when I look in the mirror. I hate that. I want to wear nice shoes again. I brought 4 pair of shoes with me for 4 days because you don't know which ones are going to work each day. I want to kneel in church again. I'm single and I want to date again, but I feel sometimes I can't walk. How can I even date? I keep thinking I worked out my whole life to stay healthy and active. Now I'm facing at least 1 knee replacement in my future. In reality, both. That's just the denial. It's bone on bone in both knees. I've always been athletic. However, I've not golfed in years due to the pivoting motion. I do not go on nature hikes anymore. I hate when I have to take a cab when I'm in Chicago if the pain limits my walking. I don't go out dancing. I find myself sitting around more than ever. Going to girls' getaways, I'm nervous at what activities they'll want to plan because of my limitations. Osteoarthritis is a painful progressive disease that slowly creeps into your body and affects the joints one at a time, just as it affects one person at a time. Until we find a cure, please help us eliminate the pain and develop meds and supplements that are user-friendly, research and accept massage as a treatment. Please take all of our input to help us control until we can find a cure. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, let's give a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you all so much. I'll actually let you all go take your seats in the audience. And while you're getting situated, just want to thank them again for really illustrating, again, the true impacts of this disease, and then the frustration with trying to find the right treatments and dealing with limited options. So we're going to open up the room again for discussion by starting with another polling question. And I will say I'm going to try to do a better job this time of really going back and forth between the virtual and the in-person. So I'm going to try to kind of go back and forth more. So Amanda, if you want to lead us into our last poll question.
Thanks. Are you willing to try a new treatment that includes a series of injections into my joints, followed by surgery to stop the onset or progression of the degeneration caused by osteoarthritis? And those of you on the virtual webcast, please select your option and then click on Submit.
So I'm going to give you all a minute to just kind of think about this before I start taking hands. Okay. Does anyone out there say, yes, absolutely, I would do this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Does anyone say, no, I would not do this? 1. Okay. All right. So I'm thinking I'm going to have a lot of don't knows. Who doesn't know if they would treat? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So we had 11, 1, and 11.
Caroline, can you please push out the results from virtual attendees?
We'll see how we line up with our virtual friends.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Similar.
Very similar. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So to dig into this a little bit, if you said, I don't know, what is the information that you would want or need? I already see Fletcher standing up, to know whether this would be the right decision for you.
First off, the question didn't ask a question, because it didn't say, the injections we can sort of understand, but surgery. Was surgery to insert something? Was surgery to replace my knee? What kind of surgery? Give me a little hint, because I don't mind if the surgery's to maybe inspect, maybe do that, but if the surgery is, we're going to go in there and replace your entire knee with metal, period, end of discussion, my response is going to be considerably different. So my answer wasn't really don't know, it was give me a lot more information.
Okay. So needing a lot more information about what the surgery entails. Bill is nodding. Oh, we have a comment here.
Yes, and again, it's Jennifer from Florida. I have done the injections. Surgery is not an option currently because the knowledge is not there to deal with other underlying circumstances, or finding that doctor is not readily available. So that's where I don't know comes in, because it's going to have to be a meeting of the minds, not a know-it-all, willing to test on. I mean, I don't mind being the guinea pig, but it's more than just one person's thought.
Great. Okay, that's really important. Do we have virtual comments?
We do not. Let me remind everyone virtually, please use the Q&A chat feature to provide your comments. Oh, one just came in.
Okay.
He said, I don't know because I've had injections in the shoulder, which helped a bit, but ankle injections are very painful and surgery is really not a viable option yet. I'd just like to clarify for everybody in the room and virtually that this question is hypothetical about the future. You know, could this be a future opportunity? And so they're not the kinds of injections or surgeries you're aware of. It would be something new and novel.
Okay. Bill? Let's get you a mic.
Thanks. The reason I said I don't know, in my case, I've had a lot of joint replacements. I have several more to do, and I have a team of 3 orthopedic surgeons that get to work with me regularly, and they're awesome. They're up on all new technologies. I would want to know how this particular one would interact with this plan that we have going on, and I also would be very concerned about researching for myself what are the possible side effects of what's in the injection, because I would change my opinion based on those 2 factors.
Okay.
So that's why I said I don't know.
So I'm hearing sort of an array of answers. So we had from Fletcher, I need to know more specifically what the surgery is all about. I heard something more along the lines of, I'm kind of unique and we'd have to figure out how this really works for me with my other underlying issues, and how does this actually integrate into my overall care plan? Okay, are there any more virtual comments at this point? Are there any more virtual comments? No?
Sorry, no.
Okay. All right. Any other comments about this? Sarah?
My main concern would be, what is the long-term prognosis of the injections and the surgeries? Is this something we're going to have to do again in a year, 6 months, 10 years? We'd need a little bit more information than, if it's available, would you use it? I want to know what's going to happen to us 20 years down the line.
Okay, that's critical as well. Okay, lots of really insightful comments. Donna, you look like you're thinking about it. Do you have a comment? Okay. All right, I think we can, do we have one?
I just want to, it's covered up, but didn't it say that it would, stop the onset or progression? And I'm the one who's definitely said, yes, I would do it.
Yeah.
Because every surgery I've had has taken my pain away. Okay. That has been excruciating. And so I guess I'm willing to be the guinea pig. I don't know.
Well, in order to get that benefit, though. Okay, that's really helpful.
Okay. Hi, Suze. I've got another virtual comment.
Okay.
They said they would want to know and have to consider, is this the new next best thing, or is it something clinically proven with years and years of evidence? So, in other words, it sounds like they'd be interested in such a new treatment if there was enough evidence about it.
Great. I think, Amy, you were up?
I said yes as well, because this would go back to an answer on a previous question where I had tried Synvisc injections before, had not had success with those, and wound up having the cartilage transplant. So did progress from medication to surgery and had success.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And David?
I was just thinking of an interesting twist on this question with the FDA folks in the room. Would you participate in a clinical trial that entailed a series of injections followed by surgery, knowing that you could be getting active pharmaceutical ingredient or be in the control group? So
can you explain what the control group is?
Yeah, that they wouldn't be getting the therapy. So I think it's an interesting question, because one of the challenges for companies developing therapies is to be able to enroll, develop the criteria for trial selection and enroll people in clinical trials with no promise of being in the AIP group or even the therapy working.
Okay, that's an interesting way to look at that. And Willie, did you have a? Okay.
Yes, I was assuming that the treatment could be successful. That's what I was going to say. That I would volunteer to be in a volunteer group.
Okay. As long as we knew it was going to be successful, or that we hoped it was going to be successful.
Weighing it towards what I'm hearing is the alternative. I would be happy to try it.
Okay, great. Any other virtual comments? No. Okay. Any other comments in the room? Okay.
My unofficial and unscientific observation, I bet that the people who said yes are people who have undergone some kind of surgery already, and those who said no are those who may have been reluctant to do that to date.
Thank you for that observation. Okay, we can go on to the next question now. We're going to do another round of discussion questions, and I'm interested to hear lots of your thoughts here. So the first one, let's see. This is not the order that I have. Hold on just a moment. Okay, I have more text on my page than there is on the slide. I apologize. So would you want a new treatment or therapy that slowed or stopped the disease from progressing? So this means it's preventing that further joint damage, really going into the joint and preventing that damage or stopping it from getting worse. Or would you prefer a treatment that really just focuses on signs and symptoms and it's not focused on your joint damage? This is a tough question, so we'll give you some time. Who wants to volunteer some thoughts? Linda, you put your hand up.
I would like to say,
Okay.
I want both.
You want both? Okay.
I want the option. I want both.
Okay. All right. Donna?
I would absolutely go with the first one because I have two metal hips that are exactly aligned with the second one, and that hasn't prevented it from moving right along. So I'd be willing to put up with whatever pain and adjustments I've made in my life at this point in order not to have it keep rolling along.
So if it could sort of stop now without additional progression. Okay.
I would agree. I would do the first one because of the progression, and I've learned how to deal with the signs and the symptoms, so I would opt to stop it, the progression.
Do we have any virtual comments?
Yes. They voted for stop disease from progressing. This is what will make the largest difference for the future.
Okay. Fletcher?
And my point is that regardless of what the people in this room want, number one is without question the most important. And the reason I feel that way is there are millions of people that don't know they have OA yet or are at their beginning stages. And those people, if they can be prevented from getting worse, then that will be a huge success. Yes, I would like to have them both for me, but preventing it from everybody else so nobody else has to go through the pain we've had to go through, I think would be amazing.
Great, thank you for that. And another good point, saving money, if you didn't hear that. Okay.
Well, and I was going along with Deborah. I complete agreement with the first one. The progression is truly internally what hurts. We already have stuff for the signs and symptoms. It just doesn't get deep enough to get where the damage is being done.
Okay. That's really helpful.
Just accepting the fact that you even have a disease, and that's a culture implication. It happens in regions, so that's something that clinicians, nurses, health educators, everyone, just the whole clinical team is going to have to take into consideration when they're dealing with the patient. Is this patient, what's their level of health literacy? Can they understand the way forward with this treatment so they can be in compliance? Because sometimes non-compliance is what makes treatments ineffective. So I think that's a huge piece as well.
That's a critical piece, yeah. Other comments here? Oh, we have a virtual comment.
Yes, we have several. Everyone here is agreeing with the room, for the most part, selecting the first option about stopping disease progression, but really ideally preferring both options, and also talking about how severe is the disease already makes a difference. If you're early on, more interested in progression. If you have more severity, then it's more about figuring out what can be done.
Other comments? I almost want to go rogue for a minute and just ask for a show of hands so I can get a better sense. So who said the first option? Who said disease progression? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay. Who said signs and symptoms? Don't feel shy. Just, oh, right. We had one vote for both. Okay, that's helpful to see. Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments on this before we go on? Jan, did you look like you have something to say?
Just clinically, if you're able to stop disease progression, then you will stop the progression of signs and symptoms. So hopefully that was understood as well.
So one would sort of lead to the other, theoretically. That's helpful. Okay, let's go on to the next question unless we have any other virtual comments. Okay, great. So we can move on. So this is really kind of getting into the technical, the nuts and bolts, and we've heard a lot about day-to-day management, that this is something you deal with all the time. So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts about treatment. With how a medication is administered, so this is separate from what we were just talking about. This is a new, different medication. An injection into the joint, taking a pill by mouth, is it surgery? How would something like that affect your decision to try it? And what about the frequency, how often you have to take it, and then the length? You know, what if you could take something once, Kathy, versus taking something for a long time?
I would have to say, I'm Kathy from Schenectady, New York. I would have to say this is one of those risk versus benefits type of thing. I've done all three, injection, pill, surgery, and some was successful, whereas others were not. Medication, some were not. So I think it's one of those personal decisions that everybody, I'm sure, has made at some point in their life, what worked best for them, but also discuss their doctor, well, this may not be safe for you, maybe this is a better option.
Right. Thank you, Kathy.
Along that line, if it required surgery and it required general anesthesia, I'd want to understand that that was safe, particularly as I get older. And it would be a big issue against surgery.
Okay. So surgery would be something you'd have to really carefully consider.
Yes, but that's for anything.
For anything,
past
but
a certain
okay.
age.
Okay. All right. There. Oh, we need a mic, sir.
It's always been a crapshoot. Okay. I mean, my mother was a pharmacist, so I had access to information because I was very young when I got RA. And I've always been willing, and if it makes me sick tomorrow, I'm not going to take it. But I feel like there aren't other choices, so if you can take my pain away and you can stop the progression, sign me up.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Let's check on the virtual audience before we come back to the room.
None at this time.
Okay. Then we'll go right back to the room. All right.
Like I said before, I'm 19 and I've had 3 major surgeries done in the past 5 years. I've done both my ACLs and then I had a major shoulder surgery as well, all requiring like 6 to 7 month long physical therapy programs. So to say like at this point in my life that I would be very apt to go and like have a very intense surgery and like I know how much it dictates your lifestyle, how much commitment you have to make to it. It would be very hard for me to say yes. But then on the flip side, after hearing all the stories from today and about how the pain that accompanies the disease, I'd be hard-pressed to say, no, I'm not going to do a treatment if it would mean down the road it would save me so much pain and so much agony. And then I also have like an interesting case in the sense that I know how beneficial good treatment is. On my right ACL, I did both by the same surgeon, and I had a hamstring graft reconstruction, and I had great physical therapy afterwards on the right side. On the left side, by the same surgeon, same exact surgery, had horrible treatment afterwards. I was at school, and it wasn't hands-on, it was horrible. And now because of that, I have pain on a regular basis. I actually just went and had an MRI this past Friday to figure out what's currently wrong with it because it just does a bunch of weird things that no one can tell me why. So to know how important it is to have good treatment and how much and how beneficial treatment can be to a joint, it would be very hard for me to say, no, I'm not going to do a certain treatment because it would affect my life at that moment.
Sounds like one of the things you're drawing out in addition to just how it's administered or how frequent, how often is sort of the entire care around it and how it's coming to you. That's really important. What's your comment?
Okay, I'm Jennifer from Texas. So it's a little bit different for me because I have RA. Thankfully, I haven't had any surgeries yet, but I'm supposed to be having one on my foot. But my problem is my disease is aggressive. And if I go off my medication, which I would have to do
for a surgery, then it would debilitate and cause other damage that may be worse than dealing with the OA. So the problem is that's all good and well, but right now, anytime I've had, in the last 5.5 years since I've been diagnosed, I've been through 5 different biologics. And the times when I'm on something that works less, it has done a tremendous amount of damage to my body. So it almost wouldn't be worth it for me because I cannot be off of my medication. So surgery is not an option for me.
So it's just very individualized, so it sounds like. Other comments in the room? Comments from virtual?
We do. Saying that I've had 3 surgeries, several spinal injections, and lots of meds, and will go to any extreme to keep walking. Surgery is the only one that gives me more pause than pain, and I would do often, but would not do if there was a benefit involved. I would do if there was a benefit involved. Again, bang for the buck, risk reward, decision primary, secondary for level of side effects or long-term treatment. If I knew it would stop progression, then other aspects become minimal to me.
Okay. Oh, yes, Bill?
I just wanted to share that. I shared some of these questions with, I have quite a few family members and friends that are afflicted, and it's interesting to me that this is the one question that unequivocally, outside of side effects, and this is about how it's administered, every one of them said, wouldn't matter. If it could help me, it wouldn't matter. I was surprised that it was that quick, and we all have questions about side effects and things like that, but as far as delivery, administered, that's the feedback. Interesting.
That's interesting. Anyone have a response to that? That actually tees us up well for the next question, which is about side effects. So let's go to that. And we actually, because we had so much great discussion in the early part of the day, we talked a little bit about treatment. We didn't talk too much about the side effects you've all already experienced. So I'm going to kind of lay that on top of this. If any of you have had issues with side effects, that might inform the way you think about this. How do you guys feel about more common side effects, headaches, fatigue, those things that would not be considered serious or severe? Anyone have thoughts? How do you evaluate those in your decision to try a treatment? Kathy?
Hi. I would take that risk. Like a headache or fatigue, it's just a matter of balancing yourself. Okay, I'm not diminishing people that have migraines. I'm thinking the way they're wording it is just a normal headache. I would just make sure I rest and plan my day accordingly. I've actually had some of those side effects, and the fatigue is my biggest one. But I'm not sure if that's from other diseases or if this is a side effect from the medications. It could be both. Who knows? I would risk that just so that I can live my life as normally as possible.
Yes?
I think all of the medications that if you watch the television and you actually listen to the commercial may cause blah, blah, blah. And we are taking them, and for most of the people, I think they're working. Like she says, she can't go off her medication. But if we looked at the side effects, that may happen. I know it may be 1 in a million, but they have to tell you about it. And I would take the risk.
And I'm sorry, Jennifer, did you have the mic?
Common side effects. I don't get sleep because I'm not able to expel the current energy. And just to be able to walk around the block, because again, I'm only in this because of one knee, that would bring so many other side effects away just to be able to get a night's sleep. But I can't because the energy just does not shut down. And I'm not going to medicate to sleep because now it's an evil cat and mouse game, so.
Thank you for that. Oh, go ahead.
Hi. So I'm willing to try any pill or treatment no matter what the side effects are. Like, I have asked repeatedly to be in drug trials, but because I take 12 medications every day, a lot of times I'm ineligible for it. Or, you know, if my doctor says, let's try this, I try to go in with an open mind because I've had all of those side effects from medications, so I kind of know that I always will have fatigue, I'll always have a headache, and I just give myself a couple of days to adjust to the dose.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I want to check on virtual real quick.
Yes, it depends on the side effects and all the effects combined of all the different meds that this person's on. Initially said they'd be willing to take most of the meds, but then when you're on them, there's so much pain and disability, you just have to make choices.
Fletcher?
Again, I have a problem with a question. Okay. Who, me? And that is, I don't mind trying something if there are possible side effects, and then finding out if I suffer with the side effects. Because if the side effects don't affect me, cool, great, and especially if it helps. But is the question about taking a drug where I might have a side effect, or is the question saying, if you take this drug, you will be fatigued, you will have headaches? That's different than you might. So I'm willing to try it if I might, and if I do, well, then I'll figure out what to do. But
let me check with my science colleague. I believe it's the latter. It might happen. Is that correct?
All of these questions are meant for discussion, so they're open to interpretation. So I think the point you made is great, that, you know, some people might say, if I know I'm going to get this, I will or will not do it. But if I might, I'll try and then see. So it's open to interpretation. And someone else just wrote about headaches, that they already know from other drugs that they're very sensitive to side effects and that they can't tolerate headaches. Like, they've already got those and it doesn't work for them. So if they know the side effect might be or definitely would be headaches, they wouldn't do it.
I'm wondering, just to get a sense in the room, how many of you have dealt with these types of common side effects from what you're already taking? Okay. That's helpful to see. All right. Any other virtual comments? We can go on to the next question. Kind of continuing on the same type of theme. So this time we're going to look at, let me go to the next question. What about serious side effects? Rare, but serious side effects, liver problems. And again, the comment about the TV commercials is really ringing home here. How do you all deal with that? How do you make these decisions? If anyone wants to volunteer and talk us through that. How do you make those decisions?
So having rheumatoid arthritis, that right there comes with almost everything that we have to take when we do biologics and stuff. So it's just part of it, part of the treatment. And it always comes down to what is the most possible. If you have the possibility of it, but your quality of life will increase, what's more valuable to you? So it's a matter of what's more valuable. Or you know, and if you're really bad, then you just say, okay, well, it's a serious possibility, but things are so bad that I don't care. I just want at least that short period of time where I feel better. Okay. So
I have just another,
Sure.
It says possibility of rare. So, and if you listen to the commercials, they all say that same thing. So, again, I would do it.
Okay. Sorry. I would have to say, like she said, rare. There's nothing to say. There's so much we don't know. There's nothing to say the cancer is not already there and something else is presenting it. It could be a blessing in disguise for other things, but I have to go with the mindset, and I am often telling families, you cannot necessarily look at the side effects in that sense. You can be aware, but you can't be scared by it because you don't know what's already in the system.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Kathy?
I'm actually in the middle of this type of situation. About a year and a half ago, I was on a biological. I won't say the name, but it affected my blood work, which turned cancerous. And so I'm currently under treatment to make sure it doesn't turn into cancer. I'm actually tomorrow morning going to the hospital for a bone biopsy to make sure that my plasma cells are behaving and that there's no signs of cancer. So this has been going on for the last year and a half. I'm currently on a different biological, and so far all my numbers have been coming down, which is fabulous, except for one, which is why they want to do a bone biopsy tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And I'm believing that that will be a positive, not a positive result, but a negative result with happy news. But I have to see an oncologist on top of all this. And he told me this is very hard to monitor because of the symptoms are so similar, and he can't really approve, is it this or is it that? So for him and for my safety, I'm going to be seeing him until he feels everything's cleared out. So
thank you for sharing that, and good luck tomorrow. I hope it's
thank you.
What you're looking for too. What about, so Fletcher, looking at osteoarthritis and possibility of rare but serious side effects, how do you navigate that decision?
I have a couple of things because I fall into the organ problem issue. And the first question I would ask is, how well can it be monitored? If they can monitor it and say, oh, hey, your liver or your kidney count is going up, we should stop. Hey, I'm there, I have no problem. If it's something like cancer where it either triggers it, and if it does, you got it, or not, and it's not a matter of saying, hey, it looks like you're having a problem, we should stop, but it's either it happens or it doesn't, then it's a matter of going back and looking at what is the result that I will get compared to the potential. I had eye surgery. Well, there's like one small percentage of people that walk away blind. In that case, I made the decision. I'm glad I did. But I'm glad I wasn't part of that small percent. So the question more is this something that can be monitored and stopped before it becomes serious or not? Would have also a major effect in my decision.
That's an important point. Virtual comments?
Yes, thanks. Virtual is echoing what's happening in the room, thinking about the level of quality of life. What value do I gain for that risk? Also, again, about, well, how severe am I at that time when this treatment's available? And, as my OA progresses, I'd be more open to trying something like that. And then also people are writing about the monitoring. If there were an option, just like with RA, to be able to do monitoring of, whatever the risk may be, because these risks may be there anyway for other reasons from the environment, like with cancer. So those are examples people wrote.
Over here.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Hamler. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. After being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, I was on a biologic drug where I developed discoid lupus, which is skin lupus, from this drug. So although it's not cancer, it's definitely something that has long-term affected my life. I have to wear sunblock, and being someone with brown skin, that is sunscreen all the time, summer, winter, fall. Even sitting under these lights, I have to have sunblock on. So I don't know. I look at that question a little differently because I'm on the other end of it, of a life-altering thing that has happened. And I think a lot of times people think that if it's not cancer, then you should be able to deal with it. But there's other things, and not minimizing cancer at all, but there are other things that happen in our lives that completely affects everything. And this has unfortunately been one of it. And then, of course, I thought that if I got off the medication, then I would be good. But no, I'm stuck.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. Willie? There's a mic coming to you. Okay.
Yeah, Linda and I had dinner with someone yesterday who mentioned that they had a friend who had knee surgery one day, and the next day they died. So I think that we have to consider consider the risk factor or the probability of any type of treatment that we consider against the advantages before we go into it.
Really carefully evaluate the risks and benefits. That's an important point. Okay. Oh, Cindy?
Thanks. Thank you, sir. I would just want to us to have a questionnaire or something prior to taking the medications to see if you are predisposed, if we have certain markers, because there's so many things that happen in our body that we don't know where they came from, that it scares me to take something that they're saying this could cause something. So I would like to have, a questionnaire to go with that to help me make my decision. And more research on this will help this and this is going to cause that. I think that would help us decide.
That's some way to navigate.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Any other virtual comments? No? Okay. All right, we're going to come to our last discussion question. And it's along the same theme, but kind of looking now more at the technical part. So discuss how your access to treatment, so things like your insurance coverage or the cost has come up a couple times, would impact your decision to try a new therapy. Sarah?
I'm Sarah from Utah. Considering the just craptastic insurance I've had for the last year and a half, it's a huge impact because we can't even get into a doctor right now, let alone medications, or we have half of our community being told to try something else because the insurance isn't going to pay for it. So my mindset is, what good is it to have a new therapy if I can't access it?
Okay, thank you for that. I'm seeing nods. Oh, over here.
Oh, okay. The other thing with access that not just the insurance coverage or the cost, is location. Like I said, we're from a small town. Sometimes we have to travel 8 hours to get someplace to get treatment for something, and then that's another 8-hour travel back. So I know people that are in smaller locations, that don't have access to big hospitals and things like that. It's sometimes harder to get treatment that way.
So access in all ways, geographic access, financial access. Kay is nodding. Do you have a comment to share, or you're just agreeing? Okay. Yeah.
Kay Harvey, Columbia, South Carolina. Just going back to pediatric rheumatologists. There are only 2, I think, in South Carolina. So, and one of my other advocates in South Carolina, Lakeisha McFadden, she was diagnosed as a child, and her parents were actually investigated by CPS because she would go to school with bruises and different things. But she would have to drive all the way from Florence, South Carolina to Charleston, South Carolina for her visits, and that's about a 3.5-hour drive. So we get it, just not having enough specialty clinics, specialty practice, people, for lack of a better term, to provide this care, or health coaches and people to kind of bridge that gap in between when you receive your treatment or when you are saying, okay, you're next in the chute to get treatment, and then receiving it. As a veteran, we are always almost waitlisted. And if you are geographically located 45 miles away from a base, good luck getting in for an appointment. So that was a great point to bring up, access in every way, shape, form, or fashion.
Go ahead. We have a virtual comment, very similar to the room. All these issues around access are a huge impact on the decision and can make or break the decision, whether it's if I have access to the doctor, access to paying for this. So all the access issues, they agree.
Okay.
I would say in our state, Jennifer Austin, Florida, it's what is it going to take to eventually get to this medication? I'm of the generation where we were the test pigs for methotrexate, and look where it's gotten. But on the flip side, to get to a med right now for a basic treatment, you've got to go through 1, 2, and 3, and that could be a 5-6 year process before you're even to the one you need or that works for you. So that's where one of our access issues would be is what is it going to take to get to there on top of the travel and who does it.
So it's an interesting point, kind of drawing the parallel there that in osteoarthritis we're at the beginning. We're still trying to find something. Bill, what were you going to say?
And I was just going to say, that's an excellent point, Bill in Kentucky, that you could ask for a show of hands. I mean, I can't imagine anybody in this room that wouldn't impact your decision to try. All these things sound great, and I don't know if everybody else is thinking this, but I'm thinking, what I've heard the last 2 days, what people are paying for stuff, I couldn't even think about it. I just have to go swimming.
Cost is huge.
Feel better that way. Seriously, I think it affects everybody.
David?
Yeah, I think of this on a kind of a matrix, right? You have expensive drug, cheap drug. You have it works for me, it doesn't work for me. And you have I can afford it, I can't afford it, right? So you look at the matrix and you say, it's a cheap drug, it works for me, and I can afford it. Then you're going to use that drug. But if the sad one is, it's an expensive drug, it works for me, and I can't afford it. And that's where society has to step in, and drug companies have to step in and offer coupon programs and all the kinds of things that they do. So the decision really is around that matrix of can you afford it, how expensive is it, and does it work for you personally? I think that's kind of subconsciously how people go through that decision.
Right, because that construct.
We have another virtual comment. I now live an hour away to my nearest medical doctor and have a minimum of 3 appointments per week. It exhausts me to drive back and forth even this hour to attempt to get better. I live alone. I'm trying to rest and exercise, do all the things for living while being in pain and completely fatigued.
Donna?
I don't think that FDA can do a lot about insurance coverage and cost, but this is where the OA, the Arthritis Foundation, and other organizations like that to increase the awareness, to, tie it to societal costs as it goes down the road, all of the things that would make a difference to being given better access and lower costs.
That's an important point, Donna, and I think all of you have done such a great job today of really showing what this disease is really like and I don't like the word burden, but that's the term we always use, is the burden of this disease. It's a great point. Are there any virtual comments? Any other comments on this? Oh, Amy.
I was just going to add one more thing, that I recently was offered a new choice of therapy, and of course insurance denied it, and so I paid out of pocket to the tune of $840. So I am now going to be faced with having to file insurance appeals, which creates more of a burden, because then you're creating one more heartache and headache on top of your pain and suffering already. And the therapy is working, but prove that to them when they're telling me that their specialists say you don't need it.
That's critical. Okay. Any other comments in the room on this? Or virtual comments? No. Okay. All right. We're going to have some great closing remarks from some of our FDA guests, but first I'd really like to thank all of you and all of our virtual panelists for jumping in and sharing in this fantastic, rich dialogue. So thank you to all of you. So next we're going to hear some closing remarks from Sarah Yim and Janet Maynard. Sarah Yim is a board-certified rheumatologist who has been with the FDA since 2005, serving in a variety of roles in the Division of Pulmonary Allergy and Rheumatology Products. and Sarah served as the FDA co-sponsorship coordinator for the Arthritis Foundation FDA Accelerating OA Clinical Trials Workshop in February 2016. And Janet Maynard is a board-certified internist and rheumatologist who joined the FDA Division of Pulmonary Allergy and Rheumatology Products as a medical officer in 2011 and became a clinical team leader in 2013. Sarah and Janet, we are grateful for your time and your insights today.
So I gave the hardest part of this job to Janet, so I'm going to be brief, but I did want to thank all of the patients who took the effort and overcame a lot of discomfort and challenges just to be here. Your voice is so important to us, and we are really appreciative that you took the time to share your stories with us. I also would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to the Arthritis Foundation for asking us to join them in these endeavors, starting with the clinical trials workshop last year, and then further with this PFDD meeting, and we're looking forward to the Voice of the Patient report, of course. So without further ado, I'm going to leave the rest for Janet.
Thank you. So I'm going to attempt to summarize the discussion that we've had today, which I will say, from my perspective, has been really very powerful. And as Sarah mentioned, we're just so appreciative for all the patients coming together today to really share your stories. So I think some key themes that I have heard are really that each patient really has their own unique story, but clearly there's some commonalities that we've heard throughout the afternoon. And I'm going to try and summarize some of those common themes. So the first I heard was really about loss and the change in one's life related to osteoarthritis. And we heard a variety of examples of loss, from giving up cars, gardening, other important life events, homes, activities that people really enjoy, dancing and skiing. But something that was powerful to me was that despite these losses, there was really a strong desire to maintain optimism and hope. I was also really struck by the themes about osteoarthritis as an invisible disease, and it was described as a silent enemy. And also in that context about the lack of recognition of osteoarthritis by some healthcare professionals, friends, and coworkers, and that there can be assumptions based on this, either the invisibility of the disease, one's age, gender, or the use of adapted devices that can potentially present barriers for patients. And I heard really the importance of support from spouses, caregivers, and friends to help with some of these issues. Additionally, I heard about the impacts on daily life. And there was a lot of differences in terms of those impacts on daily life, but also commonalities in terms of the impact both personally, professionally, socially, and emotionally. We also just recently in this last session really heard about the impact of therapy considerations, insurance, and financial considerations. There was a real big emphasis on the need to plan, and I was very impressed by sort of the amount of energy that goes into planning when you think about anything from going to Disney to going to a concert to how, when you're going out with friends, what that situation will entail. And it was both planning in terms of thinking before an event, but then also planning for what the sort of after effects would be after exerting oneself. It was noted that osteoarthritis is a chronic, slowly progressive disease without a cure and without a way to decrease progression at this time, and that it can sneak up on you. And there was some fear expressed about not knowing what tomorrow or next year will bring. And it was unclear how those aspects of osteoarthritis will really impact future plans. There was an emphasis on symptoms today, and I thought this was very powerful in terms of thinking about the different symptoms and how they impact daily life. And some people really emphasized how it affects sort of minute-to-minute considerations in one's life. And three main symptoms I heard emphasized were pain, functional impairment, and fatigue. And sometimes there was overlap. Sometimes the pain would impact functional impairment, and there were others who emphasized that there was functional impairment without pain. So I think recognizing and understanding how sometimes symptoms can overlap and how they can be distinct was helpful for me to hear. A common theme was the need to make modifications on a frequent basis, and how sometimes even with modifications, one was not able to do what one really wanted to do. And there were some notes about having to sort of pay later when engaging in certain activities. I think the last point I wanted to emphasize was really the important need for therapies, biomarkers, predictors, and tools for prognosis. And it was noted that some therapies are helping, but there's still significant need for more options. And it was noted that therapies are needed to help with daily symptoms and preventing progression. And there was a lot of considerations in terms of what we need for therapies, and the sort of complexity of thinking about risks and benefits, I think, was really helpful to hear today. So I guess in closing, I really think that this has been a very important dialogue, and I hope that this is just sort of the beginning, and it lays the foundation for future conversations. As Sarah mentioned, there will be a summary report from the Arthritis Foundation, which will be submitted to the FDA regarding the voice of the patient. And I think that that will be extremely helpful in sort of continuing this conversation moving forward, and will broadly support drug development and those conversations. So really, thank you for having us here today. We really appreciate it.
All right, and now for our final wrap-up, I'll introduce again Amanda Niskar, the National Scientific Director of the Arthritis Foundation.
As a special treat, here are some of the poll results from January about some of the topics we were discussing. As you can see, it's quite similar. The top three are pain and tenderness, walking, standing limitations, and stiffness as the symptoms that are most significantly impacting patients across the country. What does this mean for us as scientists, being I'm the scientific director and there's some scientists in the room and others listening on the phone? Just to remember, on the phone wasn't just patients, it was industry and academics as well. You know, these are things we can be thinking about for our clinical trial patient-reported outcome endpoints. If this is what you're saying is the most meaningful and needs change. I know we talked a lot about fatigue here. It came out lower in the poll, but still significant at 29% of the people saying fatigue was an issue. And here you can see again, it's similar to the conversation today as far as nationwide, what did people tell us influences their decisions for trying a new treatment. And 46% said, does the drug show effectiveness for specific benefit that's most meaningful to me? And 41% said your access to treatment such as insurance coverage and cost. And of course here today we talked about access to doctors, which is very true, especially if you're a new patient, right? And how long do you have to wait to get that first appointment? So you can see that this information will be very useful for figuring out how we're going to get new treatments to market and what patients really want. And all of this information will be in that voice of the OA patient report. Everything you talked about today, all the live poll results, the discussion questions, the national polling we did January up until yesterday, the focus groups, all of that will be in the report, and there'll be a synthesis of that information. We won't have word for word what everyone said, but we'll have some quotes that are really touch on themes that were heard and then talk about all these key points in the report. That report will be made publicly available on our website in September at the latest and be submitted to the FDA in September. On our website, there will also be a recording of this webcast, so you'll see everything that the virtual attendees saw and hear everything that we heard. So anytime you want to see that recording again, or if you have friends or family that missed it and want to see it, it'll be on our website. It should be there by April. At this time, I want to thank everyone again for sharing. I was crying over there on the side of the room quite a few times with your stories. And let you know tomorrow you'll receive a post-event email, and you can click on that link to do a fast
satisfaction survey about the event itself. They'll have questions about the meeting space and the hotel for those who stayed here in person. Those of you that are still online on the webcast, right now Caroline's going to push out the post-event satisfaction survey. You can click on the link right now and get that done, but we'll also email it to you in case you'd rather do it tomorrow. So with that, I thank you again for coming. You're really going to make a difference. This was a milestone. As you saw a year ago is when we brought the scientists together to get ready to recommend this, and we worked on it for a year. But it was decades of research with scientists before a year ago, and now we have new work to do because we need to create these metrics for clinical trial endpoint and validate those and get those studies going for all these new treatments. There's a lot of new discoveries, as Fletcher and others have said, that are out there, and they're in the pipeline, and they need the tools that we're going to help develop to make this a reality. And so your voice helped the scientific community and industry and everyone be able to have information they need to move forward with their discoveries and get them to you at the clinic where you have a choice. And like we said, really a theme today is you want more choice and you deserve more choice. A few of you actually said just osteoarthritis, and I've been here almost 3 years, and it's the first time I've worked with the arthritis community, and that was the first pet peeve I had is it's not just arthritis, it's a problem, and you need to say it's a problem, and that's what we did today. We all shared our voices and said this is a problem. So thank you for having the courage to share your voice.